A minimum wage clerk fed a stray dog behind a convenience store and got fired on the spot, but the store owner's billionaire son was watching from across the street, and what he did next changed both their lives forever. Before we start the story, tell us in the comments what city you are watching from. And at the end, don't forget to rate this story from 0 to 10. Enjoy the story. She knelt in the alley behind the store, her hands shaking as she offered the last of her lunch to a starving dog. The store owner screamed at her, called her worthless, and fired her right there, in the rain. She didn't know that across the street, a man in a $1,000 coat was watching the owner's estranged son, a billionaire who hadn't spoken to his father in 10 years. And what he saw in that moment, in her tears and her trembling kindness, would make him question everything he'd built his empire on. But to understand why that single act of compassion would set off a chain reaction that nobody could have predicted, we have to go back to a Tuesday morning that started like any other, in a town where dreams went to die quietly. The fluorescent lights in Morton's convenience hummed with that particular frequency that made your teeth ache if you listened too long. Lily Bennett had been listening to them for 3 years now, 8 hours a day, 6 days a week, and she'd learned to tune them out the same way she'd learned to tune out the ache in her feet and the disappointment in her mother's voice when she called home. 26 years old, and this was it. She stood behind the counter at 6:47 a.m., 13 minutes before her shift officially started. Because arriving early was the only rebellion she had left. If she was going to be stuck here, at least she'd be stuck on her own terms. The coffee maker gurgled behind her, spitting out the day's first pot of something that smelled like burnt regret. She'd drink 3 cups of it before noon. She always did. Outside, Riverside, Pennsylvania, was waking up slow. This town didn't rush for anything anymore. It used to, back when the textile mills were running, back when her grandparents could walk out of high school and into a job that'd buy them a house and put 3 kids through college. But those days were gone, buried under the same rust that covered the old mill. Buildings down by the water. Now, Riverside was just a place where people got stuck. The bell above the door chimed that cheerful little jingle that lied about how anyone felt walking in here, and Earl Patterson shuffled through. 73 years old, Vietnam vet, bought the same thing every morning: black coffee, a pack of unfiltered cigarettes, and a scratch-off lottery ticket. He'd been buying that same lottery ticket for probably 20 years. Never won more than $5. "Morning, Earl," Lily said, already reaching for his cigarettes. "Too early to be morning," he grunted, but his eyes crinkled at the corners. "You're here early again." "Traffic was light," she joked. They both knew she walked here. Her car had died 8 months ago, and the repair estimate had been more than the car was worth. More than she had in her bank account, too. Earl slid exact change across the counter he always had. Exact change, and paused. "You look tired, kid." "I look like I always look." "That's what I said." He picked up his items and headed for the door, then stopped. "My granddaughter's hiring at the diner. Day shift. Tips are decent. Want me to put in a word?" Something in Lily's chest clenched. Kindness always hurt more than cruelty, didn't it? Because cruelty you could hate, but kindness reminded you of everything you were trying not to feel. "I appreciate it, Earl, but I'm okay here." He studied her for a long moment, and she could see him deciding not to push. "Offer stands," he said finally, and left. The door chimed shut behind him, and Lily was alone again, with the humming lights and the burnt coffee and the weight of ordinary days stacking up like unpaid bills. She'd had a plan once. God, she'd had such a plan. She was going to be a veterinarian, had the acceptance letter to Cornell's College of Veterinary Medicine and everything. Full ride. 2 scholarships and grants cobbled together through sheer determination, and a GPA that she'd sacrificed every weekend of her teenage years to maintain. Her mother had cried when that letter came. Happy tears, the kind that made wrinkles at the corners of her eyes deepen into something beautiful. Then her dad got sick. Cancer. The kind that moved fast and mean. Stage 4 by the time they caught it. And suddenly, there were bills, mountains of bills that insurance didn't cover. Experimental treatments and specialists in medications that cost more per pill than Lily made in a day. She'd deferred her admission. Just for a year, she'd said. Just until Dad gets better. He didn't get better. And after he died, there was the funeral to pay for, and her mom's depression, and the house that needed a new roof. And suddenly, a year had turned into 3. And Cornell had stopped returning her emails about re-enrolling. The dream hadn't died dramatically. It had just faded. Like a photograph left in the sun too long. Now she was here, scanning lottery tickets and energy drinks and counting the hours until she could go home to her studio apartment and eat ramen while watching other people's lives play out on a cracked laptop screen. The morning rush started around 7:30. Rush was generous, maybe 15 people between 7:30 and 9. Contractors grabbing coffee before job sites. A few high school kids buying energy drinks and breakfast sandwiches before school. Mrs. Yang, who owned the nail salon 3 doors down, getting her tea and a newspaper. Lily smiled at all of them, made small talk, asked about their kids, their jobs, their lives, and every single one of them looked through her like she was part of the counter, just another fixture in Morton's convenience. That's the thing about working retail in a small town. People see you every day, but they don't really see you. You're a function, not a person. You're the hands that take their money and bag their purchases and say, "Have a nice day," like you mean it. Around 10 a.m., things quieted down. This was Lily's favorite part of the shift, when she could actually breathe. She'd been restocking the chip aisle mindless work, the kind that let your thoughts drift when she heard it. A sound from out back, behind the store. A whimper. Lily froze, bag of Doritos in hand. There it was again, soft, desperate. An animal sound she shouldn't check. She was alone in the store. Mr. Morton, the owner, a man whose face seemed locked in a permanent scowl, had been very clear about her responsibilities. Man the counter. Stock the shelves. Don't leave the store unattended. Don't cost him money. The whimper came again. Lily looked at the empty store, looked at the door, made a decision. She propped the front door open, she could see the counter from outside if she was quick, and walked around to the back alley. The smell hit her first. Garbage and stale water and something sour that made her nose wrinkle. The alley was narrow, hemmed in by brick walls covered in graffiti and old concert posters for bands that had broken up years ago. And there, next to the dumpster, was a dog. No, not a dog. A skeleton with fur. Lily's breath caught. It was some kind of mixed breed, maybe part German Shepherd, part something else, and it couldn't have weighed more than 30 pounds. Its ribs showed through its matted coat like piano keys. One of its ears was torn, probably from a fight. And its eyes. God. Its eyes were looking up at her with a combination of fear and hope that made her chest crack open. "Hey, baby," she whispered, crouching down slowly. "Hey, it's okay. I'm not going to hurt you." The dog didn't run. It didn't wag its tail either. It just watched her, waiting to see if she was another person who'd kick it, or throw something, or ignore it entirely. Lily had 20 minutes left of her break. She had exactly $11 in her wallet. She had a boss who'd already written her up, twice for being too slow and not focused enough on sales. She went back inside and bought a pack of beef jerky with her own money. The dog ate like it was the first food it had seen in a week. Maybe it was. Lily sat on the dirty concrete, her work uniform getting stained, and watched as the dog's tail, just the tip of it, started to wag. Such a small thing, that wag. but it felt enormous. You've had it rough, huh? She murmured, letting the dog sniff her hand. I get it. I really do. And here's the thing about rock bottom when you're there. You recognize it in others. This dog had given up. She could see it in the way it held itself, in the resignation in its eyes. It had stopped expecting good things. She knew the feeling. Lily stayed there longer than she should have. Longer than was smart. She gave the dog water from a bottle she'd bought. Talked to it softly. Let it lean against her leg just for a moment before survival instinct kicked back in and it pulled away. I'll come back, she promised. Tomorrow. I'll bring you something better, okay? Real food. The dog watched her leave with those eyes that had seen too much cruelty. Lily walked back around to the front of the store, her heart feeling both lighter and heavier somehow. And stopped dead. Mr. Morton was standing behind the counter. He was 68 years old, built like a fire hydrant, with a face that looked like it had been carved from old leather and spite. He owned 3 convenience stores in the area, and he ran them all with the same philosophy. Minimum wage, maximum hours, zero tolerance for anything that didn't directly increase his profit margin. Where were you? His voice was flat, dangerous. There was a dog, out back. It was, I don't pay you to play with dogs. I wasn't playing, Mr. Morton. It's starving. I just gave it. You left the counter unattended. He gestured at the empty store like it was packed with customers she'd ignored. Do you know what could have happened? Someone could have robbed the place. Could have cleaned out the register. The door was open. I could see, I don't care. Each word landed like a hammer. You have one job, Lily. One, and you can't even do that right. Heat flooded her cheeks. I was gone for 5 minutes. And in those 5 minutes, you weren't doing what I pay you for. He leaned forward, and she could smell coffee and something medicinal on his breath. You know how many people would kill for this job? How many applications I got sitting in my office? She wanted to say, nobody wants this job. That's why you can't keep anyone longer than 6 months. But she didn't, because she needed this job. Needed the $400 a week that barely covered rent and food. Needed the illusion that she was moving forward instead of just treading water. It won't happen again, she said quietly. Damn right it won't. He straightened up, his hand already moving to his belt where he kept his keys, his phone, his pepper spray, all the tools of a man who trusted nothing and no one. Because you're fired. The word hung in the air between them. What? You heard me. Fired. Effective immediately. He held out his hand. Give me your key. Mr. Morton, please. I need this job. I just should have thought about that before you abandoned your post to feed some mangy stray. He snapped his fingers. Key! Now! Lily's hands were shaking as she fumbled with her keychain. The store key was old, brass, worn smooth from years of employees coming and going. She'd been so proud when she got it 3 years ago. It had felt like responsibility, like trust. Now it just felt like one more thing being taken away. She placed it in his palm. You can pick up your final check next Friday, Morton said, already turning away like she'd ceased to exist. Don't come back before then. Can I at least out? Lily walked out of Morton's convenience at 10:47 a.m. on a Tuesday morning, and the early autumn air hit her face like a slap. The sky was gray, threatening rain. The street was empty except for a few parked cars and a man in an expensive coat standing across the street, looking at his phone. She'd lost her job for feeding a dog, for showing kindness to something that was suffering. And as she stood there on the sidewalk, her eyes stinging with tears she refused to let fall, Lily wondered if Earl had been right, if maybe she really did look tired, if maybe everyone could see how close to breaking she really was. She started walking. She didn't know where. Away from the store, away from Morton's satisfied smirk and the humming fluorescent lights and the weight of 3 years wasted. Behind her, she didn't see the man in the expensive coat cross the street. Didn't see him walk into Morton's convenience, with purpose in every step. Didn't hear the conversation that was about to start, a conversation between a father and son who hadn't spoken in a decade, sparked by a young woman's simple act of kindness to a starving dog. She just kept walking, her hands balled into fists in her pockets, wondering how many more pieces of herself she could lose before there was nothing left. The rain started to fall. Of course it did, because that's how these days went, didn't they? When you were already down, the universe just liked to make sure you stayed there. But Lily Bennett didn't know that sometimes the universe was setting up for something bigger. She didn't know that. The man in the expensive coat had been in town for exactly one reason: to tell his father that he was buying him out, shutting down all 3 stores, and finally severing the last connection between them. She didn't know that he'd watched the entire scene through the window, didn't know that her kindness to a dying dog had just changed the trajectory of both their lives in ways that would take months to fully understand. All she knew was the rain and the empty sidewalk and the crushing certainty that she was completely, utterly alone. Sometimes that's how the biggest changes start. Not with a bang, but with a quiet firing in a convenience store that smelled like burnt coffee and broken dreams. And sometimes, the people who save us are the ones we never see coming. The last time Ethan Morton had set foot in Riverside, Pennsylvania, he'd been 17 years old and swearing he'd never come back. That was 20 years ago. Now he stood in the doorway of his father's convenience store, and the smell hit him like a physical thing. Stale coffee, floor cleaner, and that particular scent of desperation that clung to places where people worked too hard for too little. His $1,000 Tom Ford coat felt obscene here. His Italian leather shoes clicked too loudly on the linoleum. Everything about him screamed wrong, screamed, "You don't belong here anymore." Good. He didn't want to belong here. His father stood behind the counter, and for a moment, just a flash, Ethan saw him as he used to be. Bigger, stronger. A man whose disappointment could crush you without him ever raising his voice. But time had shrunk him somehow, made him harder and meaner, like a piece of fruit left to dry in the sun. "Didn't think you'd actually show," his father said. No hello, no greeting, just that flat acknowledgement. Like Ethan was a delivery that had arrived later than expected. "I told you I'd be here at 11. Ethan checked his watch, a Patek Philippe that cost more than this entire store probably made in a month. "It's 10:52. I'm early." "Still doing that, huh? Still needing to prove you're better than everyone else." And there it was, less than 30 seconds, and they were already at each other's throats. Some things never changed. Ethan took a breath, centered himself. He'd paid a therapist $200 an hour for 3 years to learn how to do this, how to not let his father's words burrow under his skin and nest there like parasites. "I'm not here to fight," he said evenly. "I'm here to make you an offer." "I know what you're here for." His father, God. It felt wrong to even think of him as his father, like there was any actual relationship there, crossed his arms. "You want to buy me out? Shut me down. Prove that you're the big success, and I'm just the failure you crawled away from." "That's not—" Ethan stopped. Started again. "I'm offering you fair market value for all 3 stores. More than fair, actually. You know the area's dying. These stores aren't making what they used to. You could retire, move somewhere warm. Actually enjoy your life for once." "Enjoy my life." His father laughed, but there was no humor in it. "You think I need you to tell me how to enjoy my life? You think your Silicon Valley money makes you wise? It's not Silicon Valley. It's—" Ethan cut himself off. It didn't matter. His father didn't care that Ethan had built a tech company from nothing. Didn't care that Morton Technologies was worth $3.2 billion. Didn't care that Ethan had been featured in Forbes, had spoken at conferences, had revolutionized data analytics for the healthcare industry. All his father saw was the kid who'd rejected everything he stood for. "I saw what you just did," Ethan said quietly. "To that girl?" His father's face hardened. "That's none of your business. You fired her for feeding a dog. I fired her for leaving her post. For not doing her job. For showing basic human decency." Ethan's voice was sharp now, cutting. He'd watched the whole thing from across the street. Had seen the girl Lily. He'd heard his father call her Lily sneak around back. Had watched her crouch down in that filthy alley and offer food to a dying animal. Had seen the tenderness in the way she moved, the care in her voice, even though he couldn't hear the words. And then he'd seen his father fire her like she was nothing. It had made something crack open in Ethan's chest, something he'd thought he'd sealed up years ago. "That girl was a bleeding heart," his father said. "Soft, weak, always looking at people like she could save them. You can't run a business like that. You can't make money if you're worried about every sob story that walks through the door. Is that what you told yourself about Mom?" The words were out before Ethan could stop them. They hung in the air like smoke. His father's face went still. Dangerously still. "Don't. You worked her into the ground. 3 jobs, 70-hour weeks, because you refused to—" "I said don't." His father's voice was low now, quiet. The kind of quiet that used to terrify Ethan when he was a kid. "Your mother made her choices. I made mine, and you made yours when you walked out of here and never looked back." "I looked back," Ethan said, and he hated how his voice cracked, just slightly. "I called. For years I called. You're the one who stopped picking up. Because every conversation was you trying to tell me how to run my life, how to run my business, how I was doing everything wrong." His father leaned forward. "You want to know why I stopped taking your calls? Because you sounded exactly like her. Like your mother. All dreams and no sense. All heart and no spine." Ethan felt something cold settle in his stomach. "She died because of you. She died because of cancer. She died because she was too exhausted to fight it. Because she had nothing left. Because you took everything from her and told her it was love." They stared at each other across the counter, across 20 years of silence and resentment and words that couldn't be taken back. Finally, his father straightened up. "Get out! I'm making you an offer. I don't want your money. I don't want anything from you." His father's hands were shaking now, Ethan noticed. From anger or age or something else, he couldn't tell. "You think you're so much better than me? You think your billions make you moral? You built your empire the same way I built mine, by being ruthless, by making the hard choices. Don't pretend you're different just because you wear fancy suits and donate to charity." "I am different," Ethan said quietly. "I treat people like they matter. You treat people like assets, like data points. Don't kid yourself." His father moved toward the door, opened it. "We're done here. Take your offer and shove it. These stores are mine, and they'll stay mine until I'm dead." Ethan stood there for a moment, his jaw tight. He'd known this wouldn't be easy, had prepared himself for resistance. But something about seeing that girl Lily get fired for basic kindness had made him realize something he'd been avoiding for years. His father was never going to change, and Ethan couldn't save him, couldn't fix him, couldn't make him into the father he'd needed 20 years ago. "The offer stands," Ethan said finally, reaching into his coat pocket and pulling out a business card. He placed it on the counter. $6 million for all 3 stores. Call me when you're ready to talk. Don't hold your breath." Ethan walked out of Morton's Convenience for what he thought would be the last time. The rain had started, cold October rain that soaked through your clothes and into your bones. He stood under the awning for a moment, watching the empty street, and felt the weight of it all pressing down on him. He was 37 years old, a billionaire. He'd built something from nothing, had employees who respected him, investors who trusted him, a company that was changing how hospitals managed patient data and saved lives in the process. But standing here, in this dying town in front of his father's store, he just felt tired. His phone buzzed. A text from Marissa, his assistant. Board meeting moved to 3 p.m. Your 1 p.m. with the senator is confirmed. Do you need the car to pick you up? He was supposed to fly back to Boston tonight. Had meetings stacked up for the rest of the week. A dinner with potential investors on Friday. A charity gala on Saturday, where he was expected to give a speech and write a check with enough zeros to make people forget he'd grown up in a place like this. But he found himself texting back, "Push everything to tomorrow. I'm staying in Riverside tonight." The response was immediate. "Everything?" "Ethan, the senator, handle it. I need a day." He pocketed his phone before Marissa could argue. She wouldn't understand. Nobody would. How could he explain that watching a young woman get fired for feeding a starving dog had cracked something open in him? How could he articulate the way it had made him feel, the guilt, the recognition, the sudden, overwhelming need to do something, anything, to prove he wasn't like his father? Ethan started walking. He didn't have a destination in mind, just moved through the streets of his childhood, seeing them with adult eyes. The old movie theater was boarded up now. The diner where he used to get milkshakes after school had been converted into a check-cashing place. The park where his mother used to take him on Sundays was overgrown, the swings rusted and still. Riverside was dying, had been dying for years, and nobody seemed to care enough to save it. He turned a corner and almost collided with her. Lily. She was walking with her head down, arms wrapped around herself against the rain. Her hair was plastered to her face. Her work uniform was soaked through, and she was crying, not the dramatic, sobbing kind of crying, but the quiet kind that hurt more. The kind where you're trying so hard to hold it together that the tears just leak out, despite your best efforts. She looked up, startled, and their eyes met. For a moment, neither of them moved. Ethan saw himself reflected in her expression, the shock, the embarrassment of being caught vulnerable, the instinct to run. But there was something else there, too, a weariness, a bone-deep exhaustion that he recognized because he saw it in his own mirror every morning. "I'm sorry," she said automatically, stepping aside. "I wasn't watching where you're the woman from the store." She froze. "You saw that?" "All of it." He paused. "The dog, too." Her face flushed. "It was starving. I know I shouldn't have left the counter, but—" "You did the right thing," Ethan interrupted. And then, because he couldn't help himself, because she was standing there soaked and shivering, and he'd just watched his father destroy her for the crime of being kind. "He's wrong. My father. He's wrong about everything." "Your father?" Her eyes widened slightly as understanding clicked into place. You're his son?" "Unfortunately." The word tasted bitter. "Ethan Morton. Though I dropped the Morton from everything but legal documents about a decade ago. I go by Ethan Hayes now. My mother's maiden name." She just stared at him, processing. He could see her taking in his coat, his shoes, the way he carried himself, connecting him to his father, and finding the equation impossible. "I'm Lily," she said finally. "Lily Bennett. But I guess you already knew that." "I heard him say it." Ethan glanced around. The rain was coming down harder now. "Look, there's a coffee shop about a block from here. Let me buy you a cup. You're soaked." "I can't accept, please." The word came out more desperate than he intended. "I need to talk to you. About my father. About the stores. About—" He trailed off, not sure how to finish that sentence. Lily studied him for a long moment. He could see her weighing it, the strangeness of the situation, the potential danger of going anywhere with a man she'd just met, the sheer absurdity of the owner's billionaire son wanting to buy her coffee after she'd just been fired. But maybe she saw something in his face, some echo of her own exhaustion, some shared understanding of what it meant to be drowning and trying to pretend you could still breathe. "Okay," she said quietly. Coffee. They walked in silence through the rain. Two strangers connected by a moment of kindness to a dying dog and a lifetime of disappointment in a man. Neither of them could escape. The coffee shop, a local place, called Maggie's that had been there since before Ethan was born, was warm and dry and smelled like cinnamon. There were only 3 other customers, all hunched over their phones or laptops, lost in their own worlds. Ethan ordered 2 coffees and a sandwich, ignoring Lily's protest. When they sat down at a corner booth, he watched her wrap her hands around the mug like it was the only warm thing in the world. "So," she said after a long moment. "You're a billionaire," he winced. "The media likes that word. It's technically accurate, but it sounds excessive." "Yeah." He took a sip of his coffee. It was terrible. Burnt and bitter. He drunk $1,000 bottles of wine that tasted worse. "I built a company. Morton Technologies. We do data analytics for hospitals, help them predict patient outcomes, optimize resources, reduce readmission rates. It's boring technical stuff." "That saves lives." He looked up, surprised. "I Googled you," she said with a small shrug. "While you were ordering, I read that your system helped Boston General reduce ICU deaths by 18%. 17.3, he corrected automatically, then felt like an idiot. "But yeah, it helps." They sat in silence for a moment. Outside, the rain hammered against the windows. "Why are you really here?" Lily asked finally. "In Riverside. It's not just to see your father. You haven't been back in years, have you?" 20 years. Ethan set down his mug. "I came back to buy him out. To shut down the stores and finally cut the last tie between us. Because you hate him. Because I'm tired of watching him destroy everything he touches." The words came out harder than he intended. "My mother died when I was 16, worked herself to death trying to keep us afloat because he refused to hire enough staff or pay decent wages. I watched her fade away, and he just didn't care. Said she was weak. Said successful people don't make excuses." Lily's expression softened. "I'm sorry. It was a long time ago. But it wasn't. Not really. The wounds were still there, just buried under layers of success and therapy and distance." "He talked about you sometimes," Lily said quietly. "Your father, not much. But sometimes customers would ask if he was related to Ethan Hayes. I guess some people made the connection, and he'd say, 'That's my son,' with this tone. Not proud exactly, but not ashamed either. It was complicated. That's one word for it." Ethan leaned back. "I watched him fire you today. Watched you show kindness to a suffering animal, and he punished you for it. And I realized something. He's never going to change. He's never going to see people as anything other than tools or obstacles. And if I don't step in, he's going to keep hurting people. So you're going to buy the stores and shut them down." Lily's voice was neutral, but he could hear the question underneath. "I was going to. That was the plan." He met her eyes. "But now I'm thinking about something different." "What?" Ethan took a breath. He'd been forming this idea since the moment she'd walked around that alley with beef jerky in her hand, since he'd watched her crouch down and speak softly to a dog that had probably never known gentleness in its life. What if I bought the stores and actually tried to fix them? Made them into something good? Something that treats employees like human beings and serves the community instead of just extracting money from it? He paused. "And what if I hired you to help me do it?" Lily stared at him. "You're joking. I've never been more serious in my life. You don't know me. You watched me for 5 minutes. I watched you lose your job to feed a starving dog." Ethan interrupted. "I watched you show compassion when it cost you everything. And I've spent 20 years in business learning that technical skills can be taught, but character can't. You have something my father never did. You see people, really see them. That's not a job qualification. It's the only qualification that matters." He leaned forward. "Look, I know this is crazy. I know I'm a stranger asking you to trust me with zero evidence that I'm not completely insane. But I need someone who understands this town. Who cares about it? Who won't let me turn these stores into some sanitized corporate version of community service? Lily shook her head slowly. I can't. This is too much. Think about it. Ethan pulled out another business card, slid it across the table. That's my personal cell. Call me if you're interested. Or if you just want to tell me I'm insane. Either way. She picked up the card, turned it over in her hands. Why do you care, really? You could buy 100 stores. Could fix 1,000 communities. Why here? Why now? Ethan looked out the window at the rain-soaked street, at the dying town he'd sworn to forget. Because I'm tired of running, he said quietly. And because watching you today reminded me of my mother. The way she used to bring home strays. Dogs, cats, even a raccoon once. My father hated it. Said she was wasting time and money. But she'd say that kindness was never wasted. That you couldn't measure the value of compassion in dollars. His voice cracked, just slightly. She was right, and he killed her for it. Worked her into the ground until there was nothing left. He looked back at Lily. I don't want to become him. I don't want to live in a world where kindness gets punished. So yeah, maybe this is me trying to prove something. Maybe I'm trying to save a town I couldn't save when I was 17. But if there's a chance, even a small one, that we could make this place better, wouldn't it be worth trying? Lily was quiet for a long time. When she finally spoke, her voice was barely above a whisper. The dog's still out there, in the alley. Then that's where we start, Ethan said. And somewhere in that moment, in a coffee shop that smelled like cinnamon and served terrible coffee, two broken people made a decision that would change everything. They were going to try to fix something. They didn't know if it would work, didn't know if they'd fail spectacularly or succeed beyond their wildest dreams. All they knew was that kindness had to count for something. It had to, because if it didn't, then what was the point of any of it? The rain had stopped by the time they made it back to the alley behind Morton's convenience, but the ground was still slick with mud and oil-stained water. The afternoon light was gray and flat, making everything look washed out, like an old photograph that had been left in the sun too long. Ethan had never been behind his father's store, had never had a reason to. Now, standing here in his Tom Ford coat that probably cost more than most people in Riverside made in 2 months, he felt absurdly out of place, like he was playing dress-up, pretending to be someone who cared about real things. But Lily moved through the alley like she belonged here, her steps careful, her voice soft. "Hey, baby," she called out. "It's me!" I came back like I promised. At first, there was nothing. Just the sound of water dripping from gutters and the distant hum of traffic on the main road. Then Ethan saw it, a flash of movement behind the dumpster. The dog emerged slowly, its body low to the ground, tail tucked. It looked worse than Ethan had imagined. Ribs showing through matted fur, one ear torn and infected, eyes that held too much knowledge of cruelty. "Jesus," he breathed. "I know." Lily was already crouching down, hand extended. "It's okay, sweet thing. Look, I brought someone. He's going to help." The dog's eyes flicked to Ethan, and he saw the calculation there. The instinct that said, big humans are dangerous. Humans in expensive clothes are worse. "I don't think she trusts me," Ethan said quietly. "She's a survivor. Survivors don't trust easily." Lily pulled something from her pocket. She must have bought it at the coffee shop and unwrapped a breakfast sandwich. But they know the value of food. She tore off a piece and held it out. The dog crept forward, inch by cautious inch, until it was close enough to snatch the food from her hand. It barely chewed, just swallowed and waited for more. "How long do you think she's been out here?" Ethan asked. "Weeks, maybe. Could be months." Lily kept feeding the dog small pieces, letting it come closer each time. There's no animal control in Riverside anymore. Budget cuts. So strays just exist. Some kind people feed them. Most don't. And winter's coming. Ethan felt something twist in his chest. She won't survive winter. No, Lily said simply. She won't. They sat there in that alley, a billionaire in a designer coat and a fired convenience store clerk in a soaked uniform, and fed a dying dog that the world had forgotten about. There was something profound in the absurdity of it, something that made Ethan's carefully constructed life feel suddenly hollow. I need to take her to a vet, Lily said. That ear's infected. She probably has worms, maybe other parasites. And she needs to be scanned for a chip in case someone's looking for her. I'll pay for it. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. Ethan pulled out his phone, started searching for veterinary clinics in the area. But I want to. Please, let me do this. Lily studied him for a moment, and he could see her trying to reconcile the man in front of her with the stories she'd probably heard about billionaires. Trying to figure out if he was genuine or just playing some elaborate game. Okay, she said finally. There's a clinic about 3 miles from here, Dr. Sarah Hutchins. She's good. Doesn't overcharge. Can you call her? See if she can see us now? While Lily made the call, Ethan watched the dog. She'd finished the sandwich and was now staring at him with those knowing eyes. This animal had been betrayed by humans probably multiple times, and yet here she was, accepting food from strangers. Still hoping, still fighting. She can see us in 30 minutes, Lily said, pocketing her phone. But we need to get the dog there. She's not going to just walk with us. My car's at the hotel. 10-minute walk. She won't wait 10 minutes. And we can't carry her, she'll panic. Ethan looked at the dog, at Lily's worried face, at the gray sky that promised more rain, made a decision that would have made his executive team laugh their asses off. How much do you think she weighs? 30 pounds? Maybe 25? I can carry 25 pounds. He started taking off his coat. Ethan, that coat probably costs. It's just a coat. He set it aside and knelt down next to Lily, his slacks immediately soaking up mud, and God knows what else. Hey, girl, I know you don't know me. I know you have every reason not to trust me. But we're trying to help, okay? We're going to make you feel better. The dog watched him with those wary eyes. Talk to her, Lily said softly. Let her get used to your voice. So Ethan talked. He talked about nothing and everything about his company, about his mother, about how he'd had a dog when he was 7 years old, a golden retriever named Buddy, who used to sleep at the foot of his bed and steal food off the counter when no one was looking. My father made me get rid of him, Ethan heard himself saying. Said we couldn't afford a dog. Said it was a waste of money. I cried for a week. Buddy ended up at a shelter, and I never knew what happened to him. I was too much of a coward to ask. The dog had stopped watching him like he was a threat. Now she just looked interested, like she was actually listening. Slowly, carefully, Ethan reached out and let her sniff his hand. She flinched but didn't run. Progress. I'm going to pick you up now, he said. It's going to be scary, but I promise I won't hurt you. I promise. He slid his hands under her body. God, she was light, all bones and barely any muscle. And lifted. The dog went rigid, a low whine building in her throat. It's okay, Lily murmured, moving to walk beside them. You're okay, baby. We've got you. Ethan stood, cradling the dog against his chest, and started walking. His $1,200 shoes squelched in the mud. His dress shirt was getting covered in dirt and dog hair. He could feel the dog's heart hammering against his palm, fast and terrified. But he could also feel the moment subtle. But there, when she stopped fighting, when exhaustion and the warmth of a human body overrode survival instinct, and she just let herself be carried. They walked through Riverside like that, an unlikely trio. People stared. An old woman at a bus stop smiled. A kid on a bike called out, "Hey, lady, is that your dog?" "Yeah," Lily called back. "She is." And Ethan realized she meant it. In the span of a few hours, this dog had become Lily's. Not legally, not officially, but in every way that mattered. His hotel, a Holiday Inn Express, that was the nicest place in Riverside, which told you everything you needed to know about Riverside, was exactly where he'd left it. The parking lot was half empty. The lobby smelled like chlorine from the pool and industrial carpet cleaner. Ethan's rental car, a sleek black Audi, looked as out of place here as he felt. "Nice car," Lily said dryly. "Company perk. I didn't choose it." He was already moving toward the vehicle, still carrying the dog. "Can you get the back door?" Lily opened it, and Ethan carefully settled the dog on the leather seats. She looked even worse under the car's interior lights. More bones, more wounds, more evidence of a life lived on the razor's edge of survival. "I'll sit with her," Lily said, climbing in back. They drove through town in silence. Except for Lily's soft murmuring to the dog, Ethan watched them in the rearview mirror and felt something shift in his chest. Something he hadn't felt in a long time. Purpose, maybe. Or just the simple satisfaction of doing something good for someone, something that couldn't do anything for him in return. Dr. Hutchins's clinic was a small building on the edge of town, nestled between a closed-down auto shop and a church advertising Sunday services in faded letters. The sign out front said Riverside Veterinary Care in cheerful blue letters that belied the building's worn exterior. Inside, it smelled like antiseptic and something sweet, probably the treats they used to calm nervous animals. The waiting room was empty except for a receptionist, who looked up from her computer and immediately smiled. "You must be Lily. Dr. Hutchins is ready for you." They were led to an exam room where a woman in her 50s, with graying hair pulled back in a practical ponytail and kind eyes, was waiting. "Let's see what we've got here," Dr. Hutchins said, her voice calm and professional. She didn't react to Ethan's expensive clothes or the state of the dog, just moved with practiced efficiency, checking the dog over with gentle hands. Ethan and Lily stood against the wall and watched as Dr. Hutchins worked. The dog was surprisingly calm, probably too exhausted to fight, as the vet examined her ear, checked her teeth, felt her ribs. "Okay," Dr. Hutchins said finally. "First, let me scan for a chip." She ran the scanner over the dog's back, and they all held their breath. Nothing. No chip. So either she was never someone's pet, or whoever owned her didn't bother with identification. Dr. Hutchins set the scanner aside. "Here's what I'm seeing. Severe malnutrition, obvious. That ear wound is infected, needs antibiotics, and possibly minor surgery to remove dead tissue. She's got fleas, probably worms. Multiple old injuries that healed poorly broken rib here, damaged paw there. I'd say she's about 3 years old, which means she's spent most of her life on the streets." "Can you help her?" Lily's voice was tight. "Absolutely, but it's going to take time and money." Dr. Hutchins looked at them both. "Treatment for the ear alone is going to run about $800. Add in tests, vaccines, spaying, which I strongly recommend, and we're looking at maybe $2,000. And that's with me giving you my Good Samaritan discount." Ethan pulled out his wallet. "I'll cover it," Dr. Hutchins blinked. "All of it?" "Whatever she needs, no limit." He handed over his credit card Black American Express, because, of course, it was. "And if you could do it today, I'd appreciate it. I want to make sure she's okay." Something in Dr. Hutchins' expression softened. "You know, I've been practicing for 30 years, and I can always tell the people who really care from the ones who see animals as accessories. You two," she looked between Ethan and Lily, "you care. So yeah, we'll get her fixed up today. It'll take a few hours. There's a diner down the street if you want to wait there." "Actually," Lily said, her hand resting on the dog's head, "can I stay? I don't want her to wake up alone." Dr. Hutchins smiled. "You can stay in the recovery room while she's sleeping. But you should at least get something to eat first. I haven't even sedated her yet, We need to run some pre-anesthesia blood work. I'll get us food, Ethan said. Lily, what do you want? She looked at him like he'd just offered her a kidney. You don't have to. I know I don't have to. I'm starting to think that's going to be your catchphrase. He pulled out his phone. Food preferences? Anything's fine. That's not an answer. I'm serious. I'm not picky, Ethan sighed. Okay, I'm going to that diner Dr. Hutchins mentioned, and I'm going to get you something that isn't gas station food. Just trust me on this, okay? He left before she could argue, Dr. Hutchins's soft laughter following him out. The diner, Lucy's Place, according to the neon sign, was exactly what he expected. Red vinyl booths, checkered floors, a jukebox in the corner playing something by the Eagles. It was 2:15 p.m., past lunch, but before dinner, so the place was mostly empty, except for a few regulars at the counter. Ethan slid into a booth and ordered 2 specials: meatloaf, mashed potatoes, green beans, the kind of comfort food his mother used to make on Sundays, back when there was still money for real groceries, instead of ramen and hope. While he waited, he checked his phone. 17 missed calls, 23 emails marked urgent, 6 texts from Marissa that progressed from confused to concerned to borderline panicked. He called her back. Where the hell are you? She answered. No greeting. They were past that. Still in Riverside. Ethan, you missed a meeting with a senator. A senator. Do you know how long it took me to get that meeting? I know, and I'm sorry. Something came up. Something came up. He could practically hear her rubbing her temples. You're a billionaire CEO who just blew off a meeting that could have secured government contracts worth hundreds of millions. What kind of something could possibly justify that? I'm buying my father's stores. Silence on the other end. Then, what? His convenience stores. All 3 of them. I'm buying them, and I'm going to turn them into something better. Ethan. Marissa's voice had shifted from annoyed to concerned. You told me you were going to buy them and shut them down. You said you wanted nothing to do with your father or that town. I changed my mind. In one day? You changed your mind about a 20-year grudge in one day? It's complicated. Complicated how? Ethan looked out the window at Riverside's main street, at the boarded-up shops, and the people walking with their heads down, and the sense of slow decay that hung over everything like fog. I watched someone get fired today for showing kindness, he said quietly, and I realized I have a choice. I can walk away from this place the way I did 20 years ago, or I can actually try to fix something, actually use my money for something more than profit margins and shareholder value. You use your money for lots of good things. The foundation, the scholarships, the safe things, Ethan interrupted. I write checks for safe, distant causes that make me feel good, but don't require me to actually get my hands dirty. This is different. This is personal. Marissa was quiet for a moment. This is about your mom. Maybe. Probably. Does it matter? It matters if you're making a business decision based on guilt and grief instead of logic. Logic, Ethan said, and he heard the bitterness in his own voice. Logic says I should fly back to Boston, make money, expand the company, die rich and alone in a penthouse overlooking the harbor. Is that really what I want? Ethan. I'm 37 years old, Marissa. I've spent the last 15 years building a company that matters, that saves lives, and I'm proud of that. I am. But I can't remember the last time I did something that felt real. That made me feel like more than just a bank account with a pulse. The waitress brought over his food 2 massive plates of meatloaf and mashed potatoes, with thick gravy and green beans that actually looked fresh, and Ethan mumbled a thanks. So what's the play? Marissa asked finally. Buy the stores, renovate them, then what? You stay in Riverside? Run them yourself? I don't know yet. I'm figuring it out as I go. You realize how insane that sounds coming from you? You're the guy who plans 5 years ahead, who has contingencies for contingencies. Maybe that's the problem. Ethan picked up one of the takeout containers. Look, I need you to handle Boston for a few more days. Tell the board I'm working on a new initiative. Small-scale retail experiment. Community-focused business model. Give them the buzzwords they want to hear. And the senator? Reschedule. Send a fruit basket. Do whatever it takes, Marissa sighed. You're going to give me gray hair. You're 32. You've got time. Ethan stood, balancing both containers. I'll call you tomorrow with an update. Ethan? Yeah? Don't do anything stupid, okay? I know you're going through something, but don't burn your life down because you're feeling nostalgic. I won't, he said, but he wasn't sure he believed it. Back at the clinic, he found Lily in the recovery room, sitting on the floor next to a small metal crate where the dog was sleeping off the anesthesia. Her ear was bandaged, her coat had been cleaned, and she looked peaceful. Like maybe, for the first time in a long time, she wasn't in pain. She did great, Lily said softly as Ethan handed her a container of food. Dr. Hutchins said the surgery went perfectly. She'll need antibiotics for 10 days, and we have to keep the ear clean. But she should heal fine. That's good. Ethan sat down next to her, back against the wall, and they ate in comfortable silence. Thank you, Lily said after a while, for all of this. For the vet, for the food, for everything. You don't have to thank me. I do, though. You didn't have to help. You could have just walked away. Ethan looked at the sleeping dog. So could you. You could have walked right past that alley this morning. Could have ignored her. But you didn't. I couldn't. Lily set down her fork. My dad used to say that how you treat something that can't do anything for you says everything about who you really are. This dog can't make me money or make me famous or give me anything except maybe fleas and vet bills. But she needed help, and that had to be enough reason. Your dad sounds like he was a good man. He was. Lily's voice caught slightly. He died 3 years ago. Cancer. That's why I never made it to vet school. I was supposed to start at Cornell, but he got sick, and someone had to take care of the bills, and she trailed off. And you gave up your dream to take care of him. It wasn't giving up. It was choosing what mattered more. She looked at him. You would have done the same thing. Would he have? Ethan wasn't sure. He'd left Riverside the day after his mother's funeral, had taken his acceptance to MIT and the scholarship money, and run as far and fast as he could. Had told himself he was escaping, but maybe he'd just been a coward. I don't know if I would have, he admitted. I ran when things got hard, told myself it was self-preservation, but maybe it was just selfishness. Or maybe, Lily said gently, it was survival. You can't save someone by drowning with them, Ethan. Sometimes leaving is the only way to stay alive. They sat there in the recovery room, eating diner meatloaf and watching a stray dog breathe in and out, and something unspoken passed between them. An understanding, a recognition that they were both people who'd been broken by life and were trying their damnedest not to stay that way. So, Lily said finally, about your offer. To help you with the stores. Ethan's heart kicked up. Yeah? I want to know what you're really planning. Not the corporate speak, the actual truth. He set down his food and thought about how to answer. How to explain that he didn't have a detailed plan. Just a feeling. Just a bone-deep certainty that if he walked away from Riverside again, he'd regret it for the rest of his life. I want to buy my father's stores, he said slowly, and turn them into something that actually serves this community. Fair wages, good benefits, local products, maybe a community board that actually gets to make decisions instead of everything coming from the top down. I want to prove that you can run a business ethically and still succeed. That's ambitious. It's probably naive. Maybe. Lily tilted her head. But maybe that's what this town needs. Someone naive enough to think they can actually make a difference. Is that a yes? It's a let me think about it. She smiled slightly. I just got fired this morning. I'm sitting on a vet clinic floor with a man I met 3 hours ago, eating meatloaf while a stray dog sleeps in a crate. I need at least 24 hours to process before I make any major life decisions. Fair enough. Ethan pulled out his phone. Give me your number, so I can check in tomorrow. She rattled it off, and he saved it under Lily Bennett, Riverside. What happens to the dog? He asked. After she heals? Lily looked at the crate, at the bandaged ear, and the peaceful breathing. I'm going to keep her, if she'll let me. I figure we both deserve a second chance. What are you going to name her? Hope, Lily said without hesitation. Because that's what she gave me today. Hope that maybe kindness still counts for something. Ethan felt something crack open in his chest, something that had been sealed up for 20 years. Hope, he repeated. I like it. They stayed until Hope woke up, groggy and confused, but alive. Stayed while Dr. Hutchins gave them care instructions and antibiotics and a knowing smile. Stayed while Lily carefully loaded Hope into the back of Ethan's Audi, whispering promises that everything was going to be okay now. And as Ethan drove them through Riverside in the fading afternoon light, a fired convenience store clerk and a rescued dog in his back seat, he realized something. He'd come back to this town to close a chapter. But maybe he was actually opening a new one. The next morning, Ethan woke up in his Holiday Inn express room to the sound of his phone buzzing like an angry hornet. He'd silenced most of his notifications, but calls from certain people still came through. His father was one of them. He stared at the screen, Dad's cell, and felt his stomach tighten. They hadn't spoken in the 18 hours since he'd walked out of the convenience store. Hadn't spoken in months before that, really. Their last conversation had been a terse voicemail about some paperwork that needed signing. Ethan let it ring. Once. Twice. On the third ring, he answered, What? So you're still in town? His father's voice was flat, accusatory. Like Ethan's continued presence was a personal insult. I'm still in town. Thought you had important business back in Boston. Meetings you couldn't miss. I rescheduled. A pause. Then, you talked to that girl, Lily. It wasn't a question. Ethan sat up in bed, his jaw tightening. How did you? This is a small town, Ethan. You drove through it in your fancy car with her in the back seat. You think people don't talk? His father's voice had an edge to it now. You trying to make me look bad? That it? Swooping in to save the poor girl I fired? I'm not trying to make you look like anything. You do that just fine on your own. Watch it. Or what? Ethan stood, started pacing. The room was small, generic beige walls and industrial carpet, and a view of the parking lot. You'll disown me? Little late for that. You already did that 20 years ago. I never, his father's voice cracked, just slightly. You're the one who left. You're the one who walked away and never looked back. I looked back. The words burst out of Ethan before he could stop them. I called every week for 2 years. I sent letters. I invited you to my college graduation, to my company launch, to every major event in my life, and you ignored all of it. So don't you dare act like I'm the one who abandoned this relationship. Silence on the other end. Ethan could hear his father breathing heavy, labored. The old man had never been good with emotion, had always dealt with feelings the way you'd deal with a broken appliance. Ignore it until it stopped working, then throw it away. I don't have time for this, his father said finally. I called to tell you my answer. About the stores. Ethan's heart kicked up. And? No, I'm not selling. Not to you, not to anyone. Those stores are mine, and they stay mine. Dad, don't call me that. You lost the right to call me that when you changed your name, when you decided being a Morton wasn't good enough for you. The words hit like a physical blow. Ethan sat down on the edge of the bed, his free hand gripping the cheap comforter. I changed my name because every time someone said Morton, I saw Mom's face. I saw her working herself to death because you were too proud to ask for help or hire more staff or admit that maybe, just maybe, you couldn't do it all alone. Your mother was weak, Don't. Ethan's voice was ice. Don't you dare finish that sentence. Mom was the strongest person I've ever known. She held this family together with duct tape and hope, while you sat behind a counter and convinced yourself you were building an empire. I was providing, you were surviving. There's a difference. And you made everyone around you survive too, instead of actually living. Ethan stood again, resumed pacing. Do you know what Lily told me yesterday? About working for you? I don't care what she said you never once asked her how she was doing. 3 years, and you never asked about her life, her family, her dreams. She was just a body behind the register, a tool you used until it broke, then threw away. That's business. That's cruelty. Ethan's voice cracked. And the worst part? You don't even see it. You genuinely think you're the victim here, that I'm the ungrateful son, that Mom was the weak wife, that every employee who quits or gets fired is just too soft for the real world. Are you done? No, I'm not done. Ethan pulled up his banking app with shaking hands. I'm offering you $8 million, $3 million more than they're worth. You can retire, move to Florida, play golf. Actually enjoy the last years of your life instead of dying behind a cash register like Mom did. I'm not selling. Why? Give me one good reason why you'd turn down $8 million. His father was quiet for a long moment. When he spoke again, his voice was different. Softer. Almost vulnerable. Because they're all I have left. The words hung in the air between them. What? Ethan said. The stores. They're all I have left of her. Of your mother. His father's voice was thick now. You think I don't know I failed her? You think I don't lie awake at night replaying every decision, every moment I chose work over her? But those stores, they're the only thing she and I built together. The only proof that we existed as a team, even if I was too stupid to appreciate it while she was alive. Ethan felt something shift in his chest, some wall he'd built starting to crack. Dad, that's not... And if I sell them, if I let them go, then what do I have? What proof is there that I was ever anything other than the bastard who killed his wife through neglect? His father's breathing was ragged now. So no, I'm not selling. I'd rather die still trying than admit I failed completely. Ethan sank onto the bed. He'd prepared for anger, for stubbornness, for all the usual fights they'd had over the years. But this raw admission of guilt and grief, he had no idea what to do with this. The stores aren't a memorial to Mom, Ethan said quietly. They're the thing that killed her. I know. Then let them go. Let me turn them into something she would have been proud of. Something that actually helps people instead of just extracting money from them. And what? You think you can do better? You think your billions make you a better man than me? I think I learned from your mistakes, Ethan said. I think I watched you destroy the person you loved most because you were too proud to change. And I decided I'd rather be successful differently. With empathy, with actual care for the people who work for me. That's easy to say when you're not the one struggling to keep the lights on. You're not struggling. You own 3 stores, free and clear. You could sell them tomorrow and live comfortably for the rest of your life. But you won't, because you'd rather cling to this martyrdom narrative than admit you could have done things differently. His father laughed, but there was no humor in it. You really think you're going to save that girl, Lily? You think throwing money at her problems makes you her hero? I'm not trying to be anyone's hero. Bullshit. That's exactly what you're trying to be. You want to ride in on your white horse and fix everything your old man broke. Make yourself feel better about leaving, about not being here when your mother died. The words were designed to hurt, and they did. They burrowed under Ethan's skin and nested there like parasites. I couldn't have saved her, Ethan said, his voice barely above a whisper. Even if I'd stayed, I couldn't have saved her. The cancer was too aggressive. The bills were too high. I was 17 years old. I know. Then why? Ethan's voice cracked. Why do you keep punishing me for it? Why do you act like I'm the one who failed her? Because you're the one who survived. His father's voice was raw now, stripped of all pretense. You got out? You made something of yourself. You proved that it was possible to be a Morton and still succeed. And every time I see your face in the news, every time someone asks if I'm related to Ethan Hayes, I'm reminded that I'm the one who stayed, the one who couldn't figure out how to be more than this. Ethan sat there, phone pressed to his ear, and felt tears burning in his eyes. How had they gotten here? How had a father and son who used to throw baseball in the backyard on Sunday afternoons become two strangers who couldn't talk without bleeding? I don't want to fight anymore, Ethan said finally. I'm tired. You're tired. Can't we find a way forward that doesn't involve destroying each other? I don't know how to do that. Then learn. Please. For once in your life, just be willing to try something different. His father was quiet for so long that Ethan thought he'd hung up. Then I need time to think about the offer. It wasn't a yes, but it wasn't a no either. Okay, Ethan said. Take your time, but Dad, while you're thinking, maybe actually go look at the stores. Really look at them. See what they've become. Because I don't think they're what Mom would have wanted. I think she'd want them to be better. To do better? Maybe. His father cleared his throat. You still at the Holiday Inn? Yeah, the coffee there's terrible. There's a place on Maple Street, Earl's Coffee House. Best coffee in town. Your mother used to go there every Sunday. Ethan's throat tightened. I remember. They open at 7. A pause. If you wanted to meet, talk more. Without yelling. It was the closest thing to an apology his father had ever offered. Tomorrow? Ethan asked. Tomorrow. They hung up, and Ethan sat in the silence of his hotel room, feeling like he'd just run a marathon. His hands were shaking. His heart was racing, and somewhere deep in his chest, that wall he'd built 20 years ago had a crack in it. Not enough to break through. Not yet, but enough to let a little light in. Lily's apartment was a studio on the 3rd floor of a building that had seen better days probably around 1970, if Ethan had to guess. The paint was peeling, the hallway smelled like old carpet, and someone's cooking something with onions and garlic that made his stomach growl despite the bagel he'd eaten for breakfast. She answered on the second knock, Hope peering out from behind her legs. The dog's ear was still bandaged, but her eyes were brighter. Less haunted? Hey, Lily said, surprised. I didn't expect you to actually show up. I told you I'd check in. Ethan held up a bag. I brought breakfast. And coffee from a place that supposedly has the best in town. Earl's? Lily's face lit up. Oh my God, I haven't been there in months. I can't afford their prices. Consider it a bribe to hear my pitch, she laughed and let him in. The apartment was tiny, maybe 400 square feet total, but it was clean and surprisingly cheerful. Plants on the windowsill, photographs on the walls, a bookshelf crammed with veterinary textbooks she'd probably never stopped buying. Even after the dream died, Hope followed them cautiously, keeping Lily between herself and Ethan. She's still not sure about you, Lily said, settling on the small couch. But she ate this morning. Real dog food from the vet. Kept it all down. That's good. Ethan sat in the only chair, a worn recliner that had probably been second-hand when Lily got it, and handed over the coffee and a blueberry muffin. How are you doing? Really? Lily took a sip of coffee and sighed like it was the best thing she'd tasted in years. Honestly, I'm terrified. I've got maybe 6 weeks of savings if I'm careful. Unemployment will help, but not much. And I've been applying to jobs all morning. There's nothing. This town is dying, Ethan. There's no work unless you want to commute an hour each way to the distribution center, and I don't have a car. Then work with me. She looked at him over her coffee cup. I thought about your offer. All night, actually. Couldn't sleep. And I have questions. A lot of them. She set down her cup. First, why me? You could hire anyone. Consultants, MBAs. People with actual business experience. Why would you want someone whose only qualification is 3 years of scanning lottery tickets? Because you see people, Ethan said. You see this town. You understand what it needs because you're part of it. And because yesterday, when it cost you everything, you chose kindness over self-preservation. That's not something you can teach. That's character. Lily's eyes were bright. That's a nice speech, but I need more than nice speeches. I need to know what this job actually is. What you'd expect from me. What I'd be responsible for. Ethan leaned forward. Honestly, I don't know yet. I'm figuring this out as I go. But here's what I'm thinking. You'd be my partner in this. Not an employee. An actual partner. You'd help me understand the community. Figure out what people need. Make decisions about how we run the stores. I'd handled the business side financing. Legal, big-picture strategy. You'd handle the human side, hiring, training, community outreach. A partner. Lily said the word like she was testing its weight. What does that mean in practical terms? Profit sharing? Decision-making power? Or is this one of those situations where you say partner, but really mean very well-paid employee? Ethan smiled. You're sharper than you give yourself credit for. I've been poor my whole life. You learn to read the fine print. Fair point. He pulled out his phone, opened a notes app. Here's what I'm thinking. We form an LLC, Morton Community Stores, or something better that we come up with together. I fund the initial purchase and renovations that's on me, but you get a 20% stake in the company, full voting rights on all major decisions, and a salary of $75,000 a year to start. Lily's coffee cup rattled against the saucer. I'm sorry, what? $75,000. That's roughly the median for a community outreach director in Pennsylvania. Adjusted for Ethan, I was making $23,000 at the convenience store. You're offering me more than triple that. You were being underpaid. Criminally underpaid. This is what the job is worth. He met her eyes. I'm serious about this, Lily. About doing it right. That means fair wages for everyone, starting with you. She set down her cup because her hands were shaking too much to hold it. This is insane. It's business. It's charity. It's not. Ethan's voice was firm now. Charity is when I write a check and walk away feeling good about myself. This is investment. I'm investing in you because I think you're going to make this succeed. Because I think you have skills and insights that I don't have, and I need them. Lily stood, started pacing. Hope watched her with concerned eyes. What if I fail? Lily said finally. What if I take your money and your trust, and I completely screw this up? What if the stores tank and you lose millions and it's all my fault? Then we fail together, Ethan said simply, and we figure out what went wrong and try again. That's how this works. That's how it works for you. You're a billionaire. Failure is just a learning experience. For me, failure is going back to minimum wage and never getting another shot. I won't let that happen. You can't promise that. I can. Ethan stood, moved closer. Look, I know you don't know me. You have no reason to trust me except for one day of watching me throw money around. But I'm going to say something, and I need you to really hear it. You deserve this opportunity. You deserve a chance to use your brain and your heart for something that matters. And I'm offering that to you, not out of pity, but because I genuinely believe you're the right person for this. Lily's eyes were wet. Why are you really doing this? It's not just about your dad, is it? It's not just about proving you're different from him. Ethan looked at her, really looked at her, and saw someone who understood what it meant to carry grief like a second skeleton. Someone who knew what it was to lose everything and still get up the next morning. My mom died because no one was willing to take a chance on her, he said quietly. Because every door she knocked on, every opportunity she reached for, someone told her she wasn't qualified enough, wasn't experienced enough, wasn't good enough. And she believed them, died believing she was never going to be more than a convenience store clerk drowning in medical bills. He swallowed hard. So when I see you 26 years old, brilliant, kind, working a dead-end job because life kicked you in the teeth, I see her. And I think, what if someone had taken a chance on her? What if someone had seen her potential instead of just her resume? Maybe she'd still be alive. Maybe she'd have had a life that was more than just surviving. Tears were running down Lily's cheeks now. I'm not your mom, Ethan. I know. But you deserve the same chance she never got. So I'm offering it. No strings attached. No expectations except that you try your best and we figure this out together. Lily wiped her face, laughed shakily. You realize you're basically a fantasy, right? Billionaires don't actually show up and save people. That's not how the world works. Then let's make it how the world works. At least in this one town. At least for the people in these 3 stores. He held out his hand. What do you say? Want to try to fix something that everyone else has given up on? Lily looked at his hand, at his face, at Hope, who had crept closer, and was now sitting at her feet, looking up with those eyes that had seen too much hardship. 25%, she said. What? You're offering 20% equity. I want 25. And final say on all hiring decisions. Ethan blinked, then grinned. You're negotiating with me. You told me I'm a partner. Partners negotiate. They do. He considered. 25%. Final say on hiring. And you come to Boston with me next month to meet my leadership team. Let them see what real community insight looks like. Lily's eyes widened. Boston? 1 week, all expenses paid. You'd stay in a nice hotel, eat good food, and make a bunch of corporate types very uncomfortable by telling them the truth about what it's like to actually live on minimum wage. That sounds terrifying. It'll be fun. I promise. He extended his hand again. Deal? Lily stared at his hand for a long moment. Then, slowly, she reached out and shook it. Deal. And just like that, everything changed. They spent the next 3 hours at Lily's tiny kitchen table, laptops open, planning. Ethan pulled up spreadsheets and market analyses. Lily made lists of community needs and employee concerns. Hope dozed at their feet, occasionally waking to check that they were both still there. Around noon, Ethan's phone buzzed with a text from his father. Earl's Coffee, House. Tomorrow. 7 a.m. Don't be late. He showed it to Lily. That's progress. She said, that's terrifying. Also progress. She smiled. You're going to fix this. I can feel it. Ethan wanted to believe her. Wanted to think that one conversation over coffee could heal 20 years of wounds. But he'd tried before, had reached out over and over, only to be met with silence or anger, or that crushing disappointment that said, you're not enough. But maybe this time was different. Maybe this time, with Lily as his partner, and a rescued dog as their mascot, and a dying town as their mission, he could finally become the man his mother had always believed he could be. The man who didn't run when things got hard. The man who stayed. Earl's Coffee House hadn't changed in 20 years. Same brick exterior with ivy creeping up the sides. Same wooden sign with hand-painted letters. Same bell above the door that chimed when you walked in, not the cheap electronic ding of Morton's Convenience, but an actual brass bell that had weight and history to it. Ethan stood outside at 6:55 a.m., watching through the window as his father sat at a corner booth. The old man's hands were wrapped around a coffee mug, his shoulders hunched forward like he was bracing for impact. He looked smaller than Ethan remembered, older, more fragile. It made something twist in Ethan's chest. He'd barely slept, had spent half the night drafting and redrafting what he wanted to say, trying to find words that wouldn't immediately trigger a fight. The other half he'd spent staring at the ceiling, remembering Sunday mornings when he was 7, 8, 9 years old. When his mom would bring him here for hot chocolate and cinnamon rolls, and his dad would sometimes join them, And for those brief hours, they'd felt like a real family instead of three people just trying to survive each other. When had it all gone wrong? Was there a specific moment, or had it been a slow erosion, waves against a cliff, invisible until suddenly everything collapsed? At exactly 7 a.m., Ethan opened the door. The bell chimed. His father looked up. Their eyes met. Neither of them smiled. Ethan crossed the coffee shop. It was mostly empty this early. Just a few regulars reading newspapers and a young couple sharing a laptop in the corner, and slid into the booth across from his father. "You came," his father said. "You asked me to. Since when does that matter?" And just like that, they were already on the edge of an argument. Ethan took a breath, reminded himself of what his therapist had told him. You can't control his reactions. You can only control your own. "Let's not do this," Ethan said quietly. "Please, can we have one conversation that doesn't turn into a fight?" His father studied him for a long moment, then nodded, almost imperceptibly. "Coffee?" "Yeah." His father waved at the waitress, an older woman with kind eyes and gray hair pulled back in a bun. She came over with a pot and a knowing smile. "Well, look at this," she said, filling Ethan's cup. Dennis Morton and his boy sitting together. "Don't think I've seen that since." She trailed off, her smile fading as she did the math. "Since Ethan's mom's funeral." "Well, it's good to see." "Thanks, Betty," Ethan's father said. Betty squeezed his shoulder and left them alone. They sat in silence, both staring at their coffee like it held the secrets to the universe. Finally, his father spoke. "Your mother loved this place. I remember. Used to say the coffee tasted like home should feel. Warm, safe, comforting." His father's voice was rough. I never understood what she meant. "It's just coffee." But she'd get this look on her face when she took the first sip, like everything in the world was okay for just that moment. Ethan's throat tightened. She had a gift for finding joy in small things. She did. His father finally looked up, met Ethan's eyes. "You look like her, you know. More every year. Same eyes, same way of looking at people, like you can see right through to their soul." "Dad, let me finish." His father held up a hand. "I thought about what you said yesterday. About the stores. About your offer. And I did what you asked. I went and really looked at them. Not as assets or numbers on a spreadsheet, but as places where people spend their lives." He paused, took a shaky breath. "The Morton on 5th Street has a broken freezer. Has had one for 8 months. I keep saying I'll fix it, but I never do. And the employees have to constantly throw out spoiled food and apologize to customers. The one on Highway 9 has a leak in the roof that drips right onto the magazine rack every time it rains. And this one, the main store, the bathroom hasn't been properly cleaned in God knows how long." Ethan said nothing, just listened. "And the employees," his father continued, his voice getting rougher. "I don't know their names, Ethan. Most of them. I see them every day. And I don't know if they have kids, or if they're in school, or what their dreams are. They're just bodies. Functions. The way you said. I shouldn't have, you should have. Someone needed to say it." His father's hands were shaking around his coffee mug. "Your mother knew everyone's name. Knew their birthdays. Knew when someone's kid was sick, or when someone was struggling to make rent. She'd bring in homemade cookies on holidays and actually ask people how they were doing. And I'd tell her she was wasting time, that we had a business to run." A tear slid down his weathered cheek. "I told her she was too soft, that caring about people didn't pay the bills. And you know what she said to me? The last time we fought about it? About a week before she got diagnosed." Ethan shook his head, not trusting his voice. "She said, 'Dennis, when we die, nobody's going to remember how much money we made. They're going to remember how we made them feel. And right now, you're making people feel like they don't matter.' And I told her she was being dramatic. That people didn't come to a convenience store to feel things, they came to buy milk and lottery tickets. His father wiped his face with the back of his hand. She was right. She was always right. And I was too proud and too scared to admit it. Ethan felt his own eyes burning. Scared of what? Of failing. Of not being enough. Your grandfather, my father, he drank himself to death after his business went under. Lost everything. And I watched him become this bitter, broken man who blamed the world for his problems. And I swore I'd never be like that. I'd never let a business destroy me. So you became something worse, Ethan said gently. You let the business destroy everyone around you instead. His father flinched but nodded. Yeah, I did. They sat in that truth for a moment. The coffee shop hummed with quiet conversation and the hiss of the espresso machine and the clink of cups on saucers. Normal sounds. Life happening around them while they excavated 20 years of pain. I want to accept your offer, his father said finally. Not 8 million. Not even 6. I want to sell you the stores for fair market value 4.5 million. And I want one condition. What condition? I want to work for you. Ethan nearly dropped his coffee. What? Not running things. Not making decisions. But I want to be there. I want to learn how to do this right. How to actually see people the way your mother did. The way you apparently do. His father's voice cracked. I'm 68 years old, Ethan. I've got maybe 10, 15 years left if I'm lucky. And I don't want to spend them alone in a house full of regrets. I want to be useful. I want to matter. Ethan stared at his father, trying to process what he was hearing. This man who'd fired Lily for feeding a dog, who'd worked his wife to death, who'd driven his son away and never apologized he was asking for a chance to change. Why should I trust you? Ethan asked. You've had 20 years to reach out. 20 years to say you were sorry. Why now? Because I watched you yesterday, his father said quietly. Watched you take that girl to the vet. Watched you carry a dying dog in your arms like it mattered. And I realized something. You became the man I was supposed to be. You took everything I did wrong and figured out how to do it right. And that's not because of me, that's in spite of me. He leaned forward. But maybe if I work with you, if I actually try to learn, I can salvage something. Can prove that I'm not completely beyond redemption. This isn't about redemption, Ethan said. This is about people's livelihoods, about a community that's dying. I can't have you sabotaging this because you're having some midlife crisis 20 years too late. I know. That's why I'm not asking to run anything. I'm asking to learn, to help, to do whatever grunt work needs doing. His father's voice was almost pleading now. Please, Ethan, let me try to fix some of what I broke. Ethan wanted to say no, wanted to protect himself from the inevitable disappointment when his father reverted to type. Because people didn't change, did they? Not really. Not at their core. But then he thought about Lily. About how she'd been a fired convenience store clerk yesterday and was now a partner in a multi-million-dollar venture. About Hope, a dying stray who was now healing in a warm apartment with someone who loved her. Maybe people could change. Maybe second chances weren't just fairy tales. I need to talk to Lily, Ethan said finally. She's my partner in this. Equal say. If she's not comfortable with you being involved, then it's a no. His father nodded. Fair. And you work minimum wage. Same as any entry-level employee. I don't need, it's not about need. It's about understanding. You're going to live on the wage you've been paying people. You're going to feel what it's like to choose between fixing your car and buying groceries. You're going to learn why Lily was eating ramen every night while you were complaining about profit margins. His father swallowed hard, but he nodded. Okay, and therapy. You're going to therapy. We both are. Together and separately. Because I'm not doing this dance where we pretend we're fine and then blow up at each other every 6 months. I don't believe in therapy. I Then this conversation is over. Ethan started to slide out of the booth. Wait. His father reached across the table, grabbed Ethan's wrist. Okay, therapy. I'll do it. They looked at each other, father and son, strangers who shared blood and history and enough wounds to fill a cemetery. This is your last chance, Ethan said quietly. I'm not going to keep giving you opportunities to hurt me. If you screw this up, if you treat employees badly or undermine me or revert to your old ways, we're done. Permanently. No more calls. No more attempts at reconciliation. Just done. I understand. Do you? Because I need you to really understand, Dad. I spent 20 years trying to prove I was good enough for you. That I mattered. That I was more than just a disappointment. And I'm done with that. I'm successful. I'm happy. Or at least I'm working on being happy. I don't need your approval anymore. His father's face crumpled slightly. I know. So this isn't about me fixing you or saving you or earning your love. This is about you doing the work to become someone worth having in my life. And if you can't do that, then we should both just walk away now and save ourselves the pain. I can do it, his father said. I want to do it. I want to be the father you deserved 20 years ago, even if it's too late. It's not too late, Ethan said. And he meant it. But it's close. So don't waste this. They finished their coffee in silence. Not the comfortable kind, but not hostile either. Just two men sitting with the weight of everything unsaid and everything finally spoken. When they stood to leave, Ethan's father did something he hadn't done in 20 years. He hugged him. It was awkward and brief, and neither of them really knew what to do with their arms. But it happened, and when they pulled apart, both of them had wet eyes. Thank you, his father said, for not giving up on me. I haven't not given up yet, Ethan said. You've got to actually follow through. I will. His father straightened his shoulders. So what's next? What do you need from me? Come by the Holiday Inn this afternoon. 3 p.m. We'll go over the paperwork for the sale. And you can meet Lily properly without firing her this time. His father winced. About that, save it for her. She deserves the apology more than I do. They walked out of Earl's coffee house together, and Riverside was waking up around them. Shop owners opening their doors, people heading to work. Life happening the way it always did, oblivious to the small miracle that had just occurred in a corner booth over bad coffee and 20 years of grief. Ethan's phone buzzed. A text from Lily. Hope ate a whole bowl of food this morning and wagged her tail. I think she's going to make it. He smiled and texted back. We might all make it. Meeting went better than expected. He wants to sell. Details at 3. Her response was immediate. Holy shit. Holy shit. Are you okay? Getting there. How are you with him being involved in the stores? Not running them, just working, learning. A longer pause. Then, if you think he can change, I'll trust your judgment. But he hurts you or anyone else and I'm out. No second chances from me. Fair. See you at 3. He pocketed his phone and looked at his father, who was standing by his old truck, a Ford F-150 with more rust than paint. She'll meet with us, Ethan said, but you need to apologize. Really apologize. Not the half-assed, sorry if you were offended kind. The real kind where you acknowledge what you did was wrong. I can do that. And Dad, don't make me regret this. His father met his eyes. I won't, I promise. Ethan wanted to believe him. Wanted to think that promise meant something this time. But he'd learned the hard way that people's words were cheap. Actions were what mattered. Follow-through was what mattered, so he'd wait. He'd watch. And if his father actually showed up, not just physically, but emotionally, then maybe they could build something. Not the relationship they used to have. That was dead and buried, but something new. Something honest. Something that didn't require either of them to pretend they weren't carrying scars. As Ethan walked back to his hotel, he felt something he hadn't felt in years when it came to his father. Not hope, exactly. Hope was still too fragile, too easily crushed. But possibility. And sometimes, that was enough. At 2:45 p.m., Ethan's hotel room looked like a war room. His laptop was open, displaying contracts and financial projections. Legal documents were spread across the desk. A whiteboard he'd had the hotel staff bring up was covered in notes about renovation plans, employee benefits, community outreach programs. Lily sat on the edge of the bed, Hope curled up next to her. The dog was still wary of Ethan, but she'd accepted his presence. Small victories. "You're nervous," Lily observed. "That obvious? You've checked the door 3 times in the last 5 minutes." She patted the bed. "Sit. You're making Hope anxious." Ethan sat, and Hope immediately moved to Lily's other side. "She really doesn't like me. She doesn't trust easily. Can you blame her?" Lily's voice was gentle. "Give her time. She'll come around. And if she doesn't, then she doesn't. Not everyone has to like you, Ethan, even the ones you're helping." He knew she wasn't just talking about the dog. "What if this is a mistake?" he said quietly. "What if he hasn't really changed? What if I'm setting myself up to get hurt all over again? Then you'll survive it. Like you survived it before." Lily reached over and squeezed his hand. "But what if he has changed? What if this is real? Are you willing to miss that opportunity because you're scared?" "Yes, maybe. I don't know." Ethan rubbed his face. "I've spent 20 years building walls, learning not to need him. And now I'm supposed to just, what, tear them down? Trust him?" "No," Lily said. "You're supposed to create a door. Something you can open or close depending on what he does. You're not tearing down your walls, you're just giving him a chance to earn access through them." "When did you get so wise?" "When I spent 3 years watching people at their worst and best." "You learn a lot behind a convenience store counter." She smiled. "Plus, my therapist is really good. Sliding scale. I can give you her number. I've got one in Boston. Get one here too. If you're serious about this, about fixing the stores and dealing with your dad, you're going to need local support. Someone who understands this place." She was right. She was annoyingly right about most things, Ethan was discovering. A knock at the door. They both froze. "That's him," Ethan said. "So answer it. Lily, you can do this. And I'm right here. We'll do it together." Ethan took a breath, stood, and opened the door. His father stood in the hallway, dressed in his usual uniform flannel shirt, jeans, work boots. But he'd shaved, and his hair was combed. And he was holding a small bouquet of flowers, grocery store flowers, nothing fancy, but flowers nonetheless. "These are for her," his father said gruffly, nodding toward Lily. "An apology. If she'll accept it." Ethan stepped aside and let him in. The room felt suddenly smaller with all 3 of them in it. Hope growled softly, and Lily shushed her. Ethan's father stood just inside the door, looking at Lily. She looked back, her expression carefully neutral. "I owe you an apology," his father said finally. "A real one. For firing you. For the way I treated you for 3 years. For making you feel like you didn't matter. You deserved better. You deserve better. And I'm sorry." Lily studied him for a long moment. "Why did you fire me? Really? It wasn't just about leaving the counter." His father sighed. "Because you reminded me of someone. My wife, Ethan's mother. She used to do things like that. Bring home strays, give money to people begging on the street, get involved in other people's problems. And every time you did something kind, I saw her. And it hurt. Because I failed her. And watching you was like watching her die all over again. So, you punished me for it." "Yeah, I did. And that was wrong. You shouldn't have to pay for my failures." He held out the flowers. "I know flowers don't fix it. But I wanted you to know I'm sorry. And if you're willing to work with Ethan on this, on fixing the stores, I'll stay out of your way. I'll do whatever you need. and I'll never treat you or anyone else like that again. Lily took the flowers slowly. I'm not doing this for you. I'm doing it for this town, for the people who need these stores to be better. I know. And if you screw up, if you treat anyone the way you treated me, I'll make sure everyone knows. I'll go to the press. I'll tell every news outlet that will listen about the billionaire's father who's still a tyrant. I'll make sure your reputation is destroyed. Ethan's father actually smiled slightly. You're meaner than you look. I learned from the best, Lily said coolly. You taught me that sometimes you have to be willing to fight dirty to protect what matters. Fair enough. His father looked at Ethan. She's perfect for this. Don't screw it up. That's my line, Ethan said. They spent the next 3 hours going through contracts and plans. His father signed the papers selling the stores for $4.5 million less than Ethan had offered, but enough for the old man to retire comfortably. They established the LLC Morton Community Stores, though Lily suggested they rebrand with a new name entirely. People associate Morton with your dad, she said bluntly. No offense, but that's not a positive association. We need something fresh, something that says we're different now. What do you suggest? Ethan asked. Lily thought for a moment. Riverside Market. Simple, local, approachable. I like it, Ethan said. His father nodded agreement. They discussed wages $15 an hour minimum, with benefits after 90 days. Health care, paid sick leave, actual schedules that didn't change every week at the owner's whim. It's going to eat into profits, his father said. I don't care about profits, Ethan replied. I care about people. We can afford to make less if it means our employees can actually live. His father started to argue, then stopped himself. Right, that's the new way. I'm still learning. By 6 p.m., they had the outline of a plan. Ethan would start renovations next week. Lily would handle interviewing all existing employees, seeing who wanted to stay under the new management. His father would work the floor stocking, cleaning, whatever was needed at minimum wage. When do we tell people? Lily asked. The employees, the community. Friday, Ethan said. We'll hold a meeting. Explain what's happening. Give everyone the option to stay or leave. No hard feelings. Some will leave, his father said quietly. I haven't exactly inspired loyalty. Then we'll hire. Better, Lily said. People who want to be part of something good. As his father stood to leave, he paused at the door. Ethan, thank you for the chance. Don't thank me yet. Thank me in 6 months if you're still here and doing the work. His father nodded and left. Lily let out a long breath. Well, that was intense. That's one word for it. Ethan collapsed into the chair. Do you think I'm crazy? Letting him be involved? Yes, but maybe that's what this situation needs. Someone crazy enough to believe people can change. She stood, and Hope followed her toward the door. I need to get her home, feed her dinner. But Ethan. Yeah? This is going to work. I don't know how or why I'm so sure, but I am. We're going to save this place. After she left, Ethan sat in the quiet hotel room and let himself feel it, the exhaustion, the fear, the tiny spark of hope that maybe, just maybe, something good was about to happen. His phone buzzed. Marissa. Board is getting restless. They want to know what you're doing. How long do you need? He thought about it. About Boston and his company and the life he'd built there. About Riverside and the stores and the possibility of actually making a difference. 2 months. I need 2 months here to get this set up. Can you handle Boston? 2 months? Ethan, I can't. You can. I trust you. I'll be available for calls and video meetings. But I need to be here, on the ground, really present. A long pause. Then, fine. But you owe me the biggest Christmas bonus in history. Done. He set down his phone and walked to the window. Riverside stretched out below him, worn and tired, but still standing, still fighting. Just like his father, just like Lily, just like him. And for the first time in 20 years, Ethan felt like he was exactly where he was supposed to be. Friday morning dawned cold and gray, the kind of October day that promised winter was coming whether you were ready or not. Ethan stood in the main Morton's convenience, soon to be Riverside Market, and watched as people started arriving for the meeting. Current employees came first, trickling in with wary expressions and crossed arms. They knew something was happening. Small towns didn't keep secrets, and word had spread that the owner's son was buying the stores. That changes were coming. Nobody trusted change. Change in Riverside usually meant layoffs and closures, and one more reason to pack up and leave. Lily stood beside him, a clipboard in her hand, and Hope, who'd insisted on coming, her bandaged ear still visible on a leash at her feet. The dog had become something of a mascot already, people stopping to pet her, to coo over her, to ask what happened. She was a stray, Lily would say, but she's not anymore. There was a message in that, one she didn't have to spell out. By 9 a.m., they had 23 people packed into the store. All 3 locations' employees, plus a few community members who'd heard about the meeting and showed up curious. The aisles had been cleared to create a makeshift meeting space, folding chairs borrowed from the church 3 blocks down. Ethan's father stood in the back corner, arms crossed, face unreadable. They'd agreed he wouldn't speak. This wasn't his show anymore. Ethan stepped forward, and the low murmur of conversation died. "Thank you all for coming," he started. "I know this is unusual. I know there are rumors flying around about what's happening here. So, I'm going to be direct. As of today, I own all 3 Morton's convenience locations. My father has sold them to me." A ripple went through the crowd. Some surprise, some resignation, some barely concealed anger. "I know that means nothing, too. You," Ethan continued. "Another rich guy buying something he'll probably run into the ground or flip for profit in 6 months. But I'm asking you to hear me out, to give me 10 minutes to explain what I want to do here, and then you can decide if you want to be part of it or not." A woman in the front row, Sarah, 42, single mother of 2, worked the night shift for 5 years, spoke up. "Are we being fired?" "No. Nobody's being fired. In fact, I'm offering everyone a choice." Ethan pulled out his notes, even though he'd memorized this speech. His hands needed something to do. "Here's what's changing. The stores are being rebranded as Riverside Market. We're doing full renovations, fixing the freezers, the leaks, the broken equipment that should have been replaced years ago. We're updating inventory to include more local products. And most importantly, we're changing how we treat employees." How? Another voice, male this time. "Tommy, 19, worked mornings while taking community college classes online. Starting immediately, minimum wage is $15 an hour. Full-time employees get health care after 90 days, including dental and vision. Part-time employees get pro-rated sick leave. Everyone gets a set schedule that doesn't change unless you request it. No more last-minute come-in-on-your-day-off calls. No more cutting hours without notice." The room was silent now, people staring at him like he was speaking another language. "Why?" Sarah asked finally. "What's the catch?" "No catch. Just a different philosophy." Ethan gestured to Lily. Lily Bennett, who many of you know, is my partner in this. She's going to be handling hiring, training, and community outreach. She has final say on all employee-related decisions. And before you ask, yes, she has equity in the company. This isn't a vanity project for me. This is a real business that we're going to run properly. Properly, someone muttered. That's what they all say. I know. Ethan met the skeptical faces one by one. I know you have no reason to trust me. I haven't been here. I left 20 years ago and never looked back. But I'm looking now, and what I see is a town that's dying because nobody with resources has bothered to invest in it. Not really. Not in a way that actually helps people. He took a breath. My mother died working in this store, worked herself to exhaustion trying to keep afloat because the wages weren't enough, and there were no benefits, and nobody cared if she was drowning, and I watched it happen. Watched her fade away. And I swore when I left that I'd never be like my father, that if I ever had the chance to do better, I would. The room was so quiet, you could hear Hope's tail thumping against the floor. So here's the deal, Ethan said. Every single one of you can choose to stay or leave. If you stay, you work under the new conditions, better pay, better treatment, but also higher expectations. We're going to actually care about customer service, about being part of this community, about doing the job right. If that's not for you, I'll give you 2 weeks severance, no hard feelings, and a reference letter for wherever you go next. And if we stay? Sarah asked. What happens if this doesn't work? What happens when you get bored or realize it's not profitable and you shut us down anyway? That's a fair question. Ethan looked at Lily, who nodded. We're signing contracts. Real employment contracts that guarantee your wages and benefits for at least 2 years. If I shut down before then, you get 6 months severance. And we're setting up a profit-sharing program. 5% of net profits get distributed to employees quarterly, based on hours worked. More silence. Then Tommy spoke up, his voice shaking slightly. I've worked here for 2 years. Made $8.50 an hour. No benefits. Got yelled at if I was 30 seconds late. And you're telling me that's just over? That we're going to get treated like actual people? That's what I'm telling you. Tommy's eyes were wet. Where were you 5 years ago? When my mom was working 3 jobs because one wasn't enough? When we had to choose between electricity and groceries? The accusation hung in the air. Fair. Completely fair. I wasn't here, Ethan said quietly. And I can't change that. I can't give your mother back those years. But I'm here now. And I'm asking if you want to be part of something better. Not perfect. Not a utopia. But better. Sarah stood up. I want to see the contracts. The actual legal documents. Because I've heard promises before. And they never mean anything. Absolutely. Lily stepped forward, handed her a folder. Every employee gets their own copy. Take it to a lawyer if you want. I encourage you to. Make sure we're not pulling anything. Sarah flipped through the pages, her lips moving as she read. The whole room watched her. After what felt like an eternity, she looked up. This is real. It's real, Lily confirmed. I'm in, Sarah said. I don't know if I believe it yet, but I'm in. One by one, others started speaking up, agreeing to stay, asking questions about the renovations, the new inventory, what community outreach actually meant. The energy shifted from hostile suspicion to cautious optimism. By the end of the meeting, all but 3 employees had agreed to stay. The 3 who left were older, ready to retire anyway. They took their severance with gratitude and wished the Yarabuchi new venture well. As people filed out, Ethan felt a hand on his shoulder. His father. That was good, the old man said. The way you talked to them. The way you actually listened. That's how it should have always been. I know. His father looked at the empty chairs, the remnants of a meeting that might have just changed everything. Your mother would have been proud of you. Ethan's throat tightened. Don't. I'm not trying to manipulate you. I'm just stating a fact. She always believed you'd do great things. Looks like she was right. They stood there in the awkward silence that had defined their relationship for 2 decades. Then his father cleared his throat. I start Monday, right? On the floor? 7 a.m. Tommy will train you on stalking procedures. His father's eyebrows raised. The 19-year-old kid? Problem. No, no problem. A pause. It's humbling, though, being trained by someone I used to order around. Good. Humility might do you some good. His father actually smiled at that. Might at that. The weekend passed in a blur of activity. Contractors came to assess the renovations. Lily interviewed potential new hires to fill the gaps and expand hours. Ethan spent hours on video calls with his Boston team, trying to reassure them he hadn't completely lost his mind. You're doing what? His CFO, Patricia, stared at him through the screen like he'd announced he was joining a cult. You're living in Pennsylvania to run 3 convenience stores? 2 months, Patricia. And I'm not running them day to day. I'm setting them up, then Lily takes over operations. Lily, the woman you met 4 days ago. 5 days. And yes. Patricia pinched the bridge of her nose. Ethan, I say this with love. Have you considered that this might be a quarter-life crisis manifesting 20 years late? Mid-life crisis. I'm 37. That's not the point. The point is, you're making major decisions based on emotion, not logic. That's not like you. Maybe that's the problem, Ethan said quietly. Maybe I've been so focused on logic that I forgot what it means to actually care about something beyond profit margins. Patricia's expression softened. I get it. I do. But you have responsibilities here. A company. Employees who depend on you. You can't just walk away from that. I'm not walking away. I'm delegating. That's what good leaders do, right? Trust their teams? There's delegating, and then there's abandoning ship. It's 2 months. If the board can't handle my absence for 2 months, then maybe we have bigger problems. They argued for another 20 minutes before Patricia finally sighed in defeat. Fine. 2 months. But Ethan, be careful. Small-town projects like this, they have a way of consuming you, of making you think you can save everyone, and you can't. I know? Do you? Because from here it looks like you're trying to resurrect your mother through good deeds and guilt. The words stung because they were partially true. What if I am? Ethan asked. What if that's exactly what I'm doing? Does it matter if the outcome is good? If people's lives actually improve? It matters if you destroy yourself in the process. After the call ended, Ethan sat in his hotel room and wondered if Patricia was right. If this whole thing was just an elaborate form of therapy. Trying to fix his father. Trying to save a town the way he couldn't save his mother. But then, he remembered, Lily's face when she'd signed the partnership agreement. The way Sarah had cried when she saw her new wage in writing. Tommy's email that night, 3 paragraphs about how this job was going to let him take more classes, maybe even transfer to a 4-year school. Maybe it was therapy. But maybe that was okay. Maybe fixing broken things was exactly what he needed to do. Monday morning, Ethan arrived at the main store at 6:45 a.m. to find his father already there, dressed in a work uniform polo shirt with the temporary Riverside Market logo Lily had designed over the weekend, khaki pants, sensible shoes. The old man looked uncomfortable, exposed without his authority. "You're early," Ethan said. "Didn't. Want to be late on my first day?" His father's hands were shaking slightly. "Where do I start?" "Tommy's in the back. He'll show you how to stock the coolers." His father nodded and headed toward the storage room. Ethan watched him go, this man who'd once seemed so large and now looked so small, and felt something shift in his chest. This was real. This was actually happening. By 8 a.m., the store was humming. Sarah on register. Tommy training Ethan's father on inventory. A new hire, Marcus, mid-30s, laid off from the mill 3 years ago learning the coffee station, and Lily, moving through the store with her clipboard and Hope at her heels, checking on everyone, making notes, actually smiling. Customers noticed the changes immediately. The clean bathroom, the working freezers, the fresh coffee that didn't taste like battery acid. And most importantly, the employees who actually seemed happy to be there. "Is this still Morton's?" Mrs. Yang asked, looking around like she'd walked into the wrong store. "It's Riverside Market now," Sarah told her with a smile. "Under new management." "Good. Dennis Morton was a—" She caught sight of Ethan's father stocking shelves and stopped. "Oh, he's here?" "He works here now," Sarah said, and there was satisfaction in her voice. "Minimum wage, just like the rest of us used to be." Mrs. Yang's eyebrows shot up. Then she smiled. "Well, maybe there is justice in the world after all." By lunchtime, Ethan's father was sweating and exhausted. He'd been on his feet for 5 hours, lifting boxes, stocking shelves, taking direction from a teenager. When he finally took his break, he collapsed into the storage room's single chair like his legs couldn't hold him anymore. Ethan found him there, brought him water and a sandwich. From the deli case. "Rough morning?" Ethan asked. His father took the water gratefully. "I forgot how hard this is. The physical labor. Being on your feet all day. I used to just sit behind the register or in the office and tell other people to do it. And now, you. Know what you were asking of them?" "Yeah." His father unwrapped the sandwich, took a bite. "Tommy's a good kid. Patient teacher, even when I screwed up the inventory count twice. He's going to be assistant manager at one of the other locations once we're fully staffed. He deserves it." His father looked at his hands calloused from years of manual work when he was younger, but soft now from decades of desk duty. "This is going to take some getting used to." "That's kind of the point." They sat in silence, eating their sandwiches, and it was almost comfortable. Not father-son bonding exactly, but two men sharing space without hostility. Small progress. "Your girl, Lily," his father said finally. "She's got a good head on her shoulders. Talked to her this morning about community partnerships, getting local farms to supply produce, bakeries for fresh bread. She sees the whole picture. She's not my girl. She's my partner." "Right. Partner." His father smiled slightly. "You like her, though." "I respect her." "That, too." Ethan felt heat creep up his neck. "We're business partners. That's it." "If you say so." His father stood, wincing as his knees cracked. "Break's over. Tommy wants to teach me the proper way to rotate stock. Apparently, I've been doing it wrong for 40 years. He left, and Ethan sat there thinking about Lily, about how she'd looked that morning, animated and energized in a way he'd never seen when she was just an employee. How Hope followed her everywhere, the dog's trust slowly building. How she'd made a joke about the terrible coffee, and everyone had laughed. and the store had felt for the first time like a community space instead of just a transaction point. He didn't like her. Not like that. But he could see why his father thought. He did. That evening, after the store closed and the employees went home, Ethan and Lily stayed to walk through the renovation plans with the contractors. They wanted to maintain the building's bones but update everything else: new flooring, better lighting, modern refrigeration, an actual community bulletin board where people could post job listings and event flyers. "It's going to take 3 weeks," the head contractor said. "Maybe 4 if we run into problems. And we probably will. These buildings are old." "That's fine," Ethan said. "We'll operate with one store closed at a time. Rotate through all 3. After the contractors left, Lily and Ethan stood in the empty store, and she turned to him with tears in her eyes. "This is really happening," she said. "Like, actually happening. People are going to have better jobs. The town is going to have better stores. Hope is going to have a forever home." The dog's ears perked up at her name. "It's happening," Ethan agreed. "I keep waiting for the other shoe to drop. For you to change your mind, or for your dad to sabotage everything, or for me to wake up and realize this was all a dream. It's not a dream. And I'm not changing my mind." He looked at her seriously. "But Lily, you need to know this is going to be hard. Really hard. We're going to make mistakes. People are going to resist change. There will be days when you want to quit. I know. And I need you to promise me something. When those days come, you'll tell me. You won't just suffer in silence and burn out. We communicate. We work through problems together. That's the only way this works." Lily held out her hand. "Partners." He shook it. Partners. And standing there in that empty store, with a rescue dog at their feet and a dying town outside the windows and 2 months of chaos ahead of them, Ethan felt something he hadn't felt in a very long time. He felt useful, not just successful, not just wealthy, not just accomplished. Useful. Like what he did mattered. Like he mattered beyond his net worth and his company's stock price. His phone buzzed. "Marissa, the senator wants to reschedule. November 15th. Can you be back by then?" Ethan looked at Lily, at the store, at everything they were building. "Yes, I'll be there." He had 2 months to make this work. 2 months to prove that business could be different. That success didn't have to come at the cost of human dignity. 2 months to finally become the man his mother had believed he could be. And as he locked up the store that night and walked Lily and Hope to her apartment building, because no woman should walk alone at night, even in a small town, he realized something else. For the first time in 20 years, he was actually excited about waking up tomorrow. Not because of meetings or deals or profit projections, but because he was building something real, something that mattered, something his mother would have been proud of. And maybe, just maybe that, was worth more than all the billions in the world. 3 weeks into the transformation, and Ethan was learning that good intentions didn't shield you from reality's teeth. It started small. A shipment of local produce that arrived half-rotten because the farmer didn't have proper refrigeration. A new hire who showed up drunk on her 3rd day. The community bulletin board that someone had defaced with spray paint overnight, just the word gentrification in angry red letters. Then came the bigger problems. The first store's renovation uncovered black mold behind the walls. The contractor estimated an additional $40,000 and 2 weeks' delay. The health inspector flagged violations at the second location that required immediate fixes before they could reopen. And Tommy, reliable, hard-working Tommy, got into a car accident that left him with a broken arm and unable to work for 6 weeks. Ethan sat in his hotel room at 11 p.m. on a Thursday, spreadsheets blurring in front of him, and felt the familiar weight of impossible expectations settling onto his shoulders. His phone rang. "Lily, are you still up?" she asked. "Unfortunately." "Me too. Can't sleep. Keep thinking about everything that could go wrong." "Join the club." Ethan rubbed his eyes. "The mold alone is going to set us back significantly. And without Tommy, we're short-staffed right when we need all hands on deck." "I know." A pause. "Want to come over? I made coffee. The good kind, not the battery acid from the store." 20 minutes later, Ethan was sitting on Lily's worn couch, Hope's head resting on his knee, a minor miracle, given how the dog had avoided him for weeks. Lily curled up in the chair across from him, both hands wrapped around her mug. "Talk to me," she said. "Really talk. Not the corporate, everything's fine speech you gave the employees today. The truth." Ethan took a breath. "The truth is, we're already over budget by $150,000. The renovations are taking twice as long as projected, and I'm starting to wonder if I was naive to think we could actually pull this off." "You're not naive. You're optimistic. There's a difference." "Is there?" "Because, from where I'm sitting, optimism looks a lot like stupidity." Lily was quiet for a moment. "You know what my dad used to say? He'd say that the difference between a dreamer and a fool is follow-through. Dreamers keep going when things get hard. Fools give up and blame everyone else. Which one am I? That's not for me to decide. That's for you to prove." She set down her mug. "Look, I'm scared too. I've got my entire future riding on this. If it fails, I'm back to square one, except now I've got a dog to feed and medical bills from her surgery. But being scared doesn't mean we stop. It means we figure out what we're made of." "Very inspiring. You should write fortune cookies." "I'm serious, Ethan. This matters. Not just the stores, though, they do matter. But what we're trying to prove, that you can build something good without exploiting people. That success doesn't have to come at the cost of someone else's suffering. And if we can't prove it, if we fail, and become just another example of rich people playing at philanthropy, then at least we tried. At least we gave people a few weeks of better wages and hope. That's more than they had before." Hope shifted, pressing closer against Ethan's leg. He scratched behind her ears absently, and the dog sighed in contentment. "She likes you now," Lily observed. "Took her long enough. Trust takes time. You can't rush it." Lily's eyes were serious. "Same with this project. We're asking people to trust us. Trust that we're different, that we mean what we say. That takes more than 3 weeks, and some fresh paint. So what do we do? How do we keep going when everything feels like it's falling apart?" "We break it down, make it manageable." Lily grabbed her ever-present clipboard. "The mold that's just money. You have money. It's a setback, not a failure. The health violations, same thing. Fixable with resources and time. Tommy's accident, horrible. But we can redistribute his hours. Your dad has been doing better than expected. Maybe we promote him to temporary assistant manager." Ethan nearly choked on his coffee. "My father? As a manager? Why not? He knows the systems. He's been doing the work. And maybe giving him more responsibility will show him we actually trust him. Or maybe he'll revert to his old ways the second he has power again. Then we deal with it. But Ethan, you have to give people room to grow. You can't hold them hostage to their past forever." She was right. He hated that she was right. "When did you get so wise?" he asked. "When I stopped having anything to lose." Lily smiled sadly. When you hit rock bottom, you've got two choices. Stay there or start climbing. I chose climbing. Now I'm just trying to help other people do the same. They talked until past 2 a.m., working through problems and solutions, fears and contingencies. And slowly, the overwhelming weight started to feel manageable. Not easy, but possible. As Ethan stood to leave, Lily stopped him at the door. "Thank you," she said. "For what?" "For not giving up. For still being here when most people would have cut their losses and run." She touched his arm lightly. "You're a good man, Ethan Hayes. Better than you give yourself credit for." He wanted to argue, wanted to list all the ways he was selfish and scared and still running from ghosts. But the way she looked at him with genuine affection and respect made the words die in his throat. "Good night, Lily." "Good night." Walking back to his hotel through Riverside's empty streets, Ethan felt something shift. Not the cracking open feeling from before, but something settling into place, like puzzle pieces finally finding their fit. This town was starting to feel like home, and that terrified him more than any business failure ever could. Friday morning brought a new crisis. Ethan arrived at the main store to find his father and Sarah in a heated argument. "I don't care what the schedule says," his father was saying, his voice tight. "We need someone to cover the evening shift, and you're here." "I have plans," Sarah shot back. "Real plans that I made because you gave me a schedule 2 weeks ago that said I was off tonight. You can't just change it because it's convenient. For you. I'm not changing it because it's convenient. I'm changing it because Marcus called in sick and we're short-staffed. Then call someone else. Call one of the new hires. But you don't get to mess with my life just because, is there a problem?" Ethan's voice cut through the argument. Both of them turned. His father's face was flushed. Sarah's eyes were blazing with barely controlled anger. "No problem," his father said tersely. "Just dealing with a scheduling issue." By trying to force Sarah to work on her day off? "I'm not forcing. I'm asking." It didn't sound like asking. Ethan turned to Sarah. "Are you scheduled to work tonight?" "No, I'm off. I've got my daughter's school play at 7. I told Dennis. Told your father 3 weeks ago when we finalized the schedules." Ethan looked at his father. "Then she's off. We'll figure something else out." There is no something else. Everyone's already working maximum hours. We can't just, "Then I'll cover it." Ethan pulled out his phone, started rearranging his evening. Calls. "I can work a register." "You're the owner." "You can't. I'm a partner. And partners do what needs to be done." He met his father's eyes. "This is exactly what we talked about, Dad. Respecting people's time, honoring commitments, not treating employees like they're expendable." His father's jaw clenched. For a moment, Ethan thought he'd blow up, storm out, prove that nothing had really changed. Instead, he took a breath. "You're right. Sarah, I apologize. I shouldn't have tried to change your schedule last minute. Enjoy your daughter's play." Sarah looked between them, surprise evident on her face. "Thank you." After she left, Ethan and his father stood in tense silence. "I was trying to solve a problem," his father said finally. "By creating another one. By making Sarah choose between her job and her kid. That's exactly the kind of thing the old management did. I know. I know. Okay?" His father's voice cracked slightly. I defaulted. Fell back into old patterns because they're familiar. Because when there's a crisis, I go to what I know. Then learn new patterns. That's why you're here. That's why we're doing this. It's harder than I thought it would be." His father sat down heavily on a storage crate. Changing, being different. Every instinct I have tells me to just command people, to make them do what needs doing. And I have to fight that every single day. Ethan felt his anger deflate slightly. I know it's hard, but that's the work. That's what growth looks like, uncomfortable, and difficult, and full of mistakes. And if I keep making mistakes, if I can't change fast enough, then we keep trying. But Dad, you can't just try when it's convenient. You have to try especially when it's hard. When every instinct is screaming at you to go back to the old ways. He paused. Can you do that? His father looked at him with tired eyes. I don't know, but I'm going to try. It wasn't a guarantee, but it was honest. And maybe that was all Ethan could ask for. That evening, Ethan found himself behind a register for the first time in his life. Lily had come in to help train him basics. Transactions, how to handle returns, what to do if someone tried to pay with a check that was clearly fake. This is humbling, Ethan admitted after the third customer asked him how to ring up their lottery ticket. Welcome to retail, Lily grinned. Now you know what I did for 3 years. How did you not go insane? Who says I didn't? She processed a transaction effortlessly, chatting with Mrs. Yang about her granddaughter's upcoming wedding while simultaneously bagging groceries and checking inventory on the cigarettes. You just learn to find joy in small things. The regulars who remember your name, the kid who's excited about buying their first energy drink, the old man who tells the same story every week but makes you laugh anyway. Ethan watched her work. The easy competence, the genuine warmth, and understood why customers loved her. She made them feel seen, like their presence mattered. You're really good at this, he said during a lull. At what? Scanning items? At making people feel valued. At caring. He hesitated. I'm realizing I don't know how to do that. I know how to strategize and analyze and optimize. But actual human connection? I'm lost. Lily looked at him thoughtfully. You know how to do it. You're just out of practice. Watch. The next customer was a teenage girl, maybe 16, buying tampons and looking mortified. Before Ethan could fumble through the transaction, Lily stepped in. Rough day? She asked casually, already scanning the items. The girl's face flooded with relief. The worst. And my mom's out of town, so I had to walk here. And it's freezing. And I have cramps. And... She stopped, embarrassed. Sorry. You don't need to hear all that. Are you kidding? Periods are the worst. Hang on. Lily grabbed a chocolate bar from the impulse display. On the house, and there's ibuprofen in aisle 3 if you need it. Generic brand works just as well as the name brand. The girl's eyes welled up. Thank you. Nobody's ever just been cool about this. Well, we're cool about it here. And if you ever need to use the bathroom, just ask. We keep it cleaner. Now. After the girl left, Ethan stared at Lily. How did you know she needed that? Because I was her once, 16, and mortified, and wishing someone would just treat it like the normal, annoying thing it is, instead of something shameful. Lily shrugged. That's the secret to retail. Remember what it was like to need something. Then be the person who provides it without making someone feel bad for needing it. Ethan processed that, thinking about all the times he'd walked past people in need because engaging felt uncomfortable, because seeing their humanity required acknowledging his own complicity in a system that left them struggling. I've been terrible at this, he said quietly. At seeing people, really seeing them. Then get better at it. Lily bumped his shoulder gently. You've got time to practice. They worked together through the dinner rush, Ethan fumbling through transactions, Lily smoothly handling everything he couldn't. And slowly, he started to get it. The rhythm of retail, the small conversations, the way a smile could change someone's entire day. Around 8 p.m., his father came in for the shift change. He'd been working at the second location all day and looked exhausted. "How'd he do?" his father asked Lily, nodding toward Ethan. "He didn't burn the place down. That's a win. That's more than I did my first day working a register." His father pulled on his store vest. "You heading out?" "Yeah." Hope needs her walk. Lily started gathering her things, then paused. "Dennis? About this morning. Thank you for apologizing to Sarah. That meant a lot." His father looked uncomfortable. "I shouldn't have put her in that position to begin with." "No, you shouldn't have. But you recognized it and fixed it. That's growth." She smiled. "Keep it up." After she left, Ethan and his father worked in silence for a while. The evening crowd was light, just a few people grabbing last-minute items on their way home. "She's good for you," his father said suddenly. "Lily? She's my business partner. She's more than that, and you know it." His father restocked the candy display. "She makes you better, pushes you to actually think about people instead of just systems." "She's my business partner," Ethan repeated firmly. "If you say so." His father was quiet for a moment. "Your mother would have liked her. They're similar, that way of caring about people so fiercely it becomes inconvenient." Ethan felt his chest tighten. "Don't." "Don't what?" "Mention your mother? She existed, Ethan. She mattered. We can't just pretend she didn't." "I'm not pretending anything. I'm just—" He stopped, frustrated. "I'm trying to focus on the present, on doing the work. I don't have time for whatever psychoanalysis you're attempting. I'm not psychoanalyzing. I'm just observing that you light up around her, that you're happier here, doing this, than I've seen you in years. And maybe that's worth paying attention to. My happiness isn't the point of this project. Maybe it should be." His father met his eyes. "You spent 20 years building a company and making billions. And from what I can see, it didn't make you happy. But this? These stores? Lily? They do. So maybe stop fighting it and just let yourself have something good." Ethan wanted to argue, wanted to list all the reasons why his father was wrong, why happiness was a luxury he couldn't afford when there was work to be done. But standing there, in that convenience store, remembering the way Lily had made that teenager feel seen, the way she pushed him to be better, he couldn't find the words. Because maybe his father was right. Maybe for the first time in his adult life, Ethan was actually happy. And that scared him more than any business failure ever could. Because happiness could be taken away, could be lost, could die the way his mother had died slowly, under the weight of too many expectations and not enough hope. Better to stay focused on the work, on the mission, on anything except the dangerous possibility that he was falling for his business partner and this dying town, and the idea that maybe he didn't have to keep running forever. Better to stay safe than risk that kind of pain again. But as he locked up the store that night and walked back to his hotel through streets that were starting to feel familiar, Ethan wondered if safety was really what he wanted anymore, or if maybe, just maybe, it was time to stop running, time to stay, time to risk everything on the chance that something real could be built from the wreckage of the past. And that terrified him. But it also felt like the most honest thing he'd felt in 20 years. The call came at 2:30 in the morning. Ethan jerked awake, his heart hammering, phone buzzing angrily on the nightstand. The screen said, "Lily Sell," and his stomach dropped. Nothing good happened at 2:30 a.m. "Hello? Ethan?" Her voice was shaking. "I need you to come to the store, the main one, now." "What happened?" "Just come, please." She hung up. Ethan was dressed and out the door in 3 minutes flat, his mind racing through worst-case scenarios. Fire. Robbery. Someone hurt. He drove through Riverside's empty streets faster than was safe, his hands gripping the steering wheel so hard his knuckles went white. The store's lights were blazing when he pulled up. 2 police cars sat in the parking lot, their lights off, but their presence heavy with implication. Through the window he could see Lily talking to an officer, her arms wrapped around herself, hope pressed against her legs. Ethan, practically, ran inside. "What happened?" Lily turned, and he saw her face pale, eyes red-rimmed, a cut above her eyebrow that someone had already bandaged. Rage flooded through him, hot and immediate. "Who did this?" His voice came out dangerously quiet. "Who hurt you?" "I'm fine. It's not—" She took a shaky breath. "Someone broke in while I was here doing inventory. I stayed late because we're behind on the counts after the renovations, and I didn't think I should have locked the door, but I thought it'd be quick. And, Lily, focus. What happened?" The police officer, a man in his 50s, with kind eyes and a weathered face, stepped in. "Miss Bennett was working alone around midnight when 2 men entered the store. They demanded money from the register. When she complied, one of them recognized her." Ethan's blood went cold. "Recognized her how?" Lily's voice was barely audible. "From high school. His name's Derek Manning. We were in the same grade. He was—" She swallowed hard. "He was really angry that I'm working here again, that the stores are under new management. Started saying things about gentrification, about how people like me and you are ruining Riverside for real people." "People like us," Ethan repeated flatly. "He wasn't wrong about some of it," Lily said, and that made Ethan's anger spike even higher. Not about the violence, but about the fear. "People are scared, Ethan. They're scared that we're going to make Riverside into something they can't afford, that we're going to push them out the same way every other revitalization project has. Pushed out the people who actually live in these places." The officer cleared his throat. The 2 suspects took approximately $300 from the register and fled. "We have their descriptions, and given that Miss Bennett knows one of them, we'll likely make an arrest within 48 hours. "Good." Ethan's jaw was clenched so tight it ached. "What else?" "We'd recommend not working alone at night anymore. Install better security cameras. Maybe a panic button behind the counter that connects directly to the station." "Done. All of it. Whatever you need." Ethan looked at Lily. "Are you sure you're okay? Did they touch you?" "No. I mean, yes, I'm okay. And one of them pushed me when I was too slow opening the register, but that's how I hit my head on the counter. It wasn't. It could have been so much worse. Could have been worse." The words echoed in Ethan's head, bringing with them a tidal wave of what-ifs that made him feel physically sick. What if they'd had weapons? What if they'd decided $300 wasn't enough? What if Lily had fought back? What if he'd lost her before he'd even realized how much she mattered? The officer took their statements, asked a few more questions, and finally left with a promise to call as soon as they had any developments. Ethan locked the door behind him and turned to find Lily collapsed in one of the folding chairs. Her face in her hands, shaking. He was beside her in 2 strides, pulling her up and into his arms before he could think about whether it was appropriate or professional or any of the things his lawyer brain usually worried about. She held on to him like he was the only solid thing in a world that had just proven itself untrustworthy, and he felt her tears soaking through his shirt. "I was so scared," she whispered. "I kept thinking about Hope, about who would take care of her if something happened to me, about how I'd just gotten this chance, this opportunity, to actually make something of my life, and it was going to end in a convenience store robbery like some horrible cliché. It didn't end. You're okay. You're safe." Ethan's voice was rough, his hand stroking her hair without conscious thought. "And I'm going to make sure you stay safe. New security system tomorrow. Panic buttons. No one works alone after dark. Ever. You can't protect everyone all the time. Watch me." He pulled back enough to look at her face, to wipe away her tears with his thumb. "This is my fault. I should have thought about security, should have realized that change would scare people, make them desperate. This isn't your fault, it's Derek's fault. He made a choice that came from desperation, from feeling like his town was being taken away." Ethan helped her sit back down, grabbed a bottle of water from the cooler. "We need to do better. Need to actually talk to the community about what we're doing. Make them part of this instead of making them feel like victims of it." Lily took the water, her hands still shaking slightly. "How?" "I don't know yet, but we'll figure it out." He sat beside her, exhaustion and adrenaline warring in his system. "First, though, you're going home. You're taking tomorrow off, and you're going to rest and let yourself process what just happened instead of pushing through like nothing's wrong. I can't take a day off. We're already behind schedule, and, Lily, you were just robbed. You hit your head. You're going home." She looked at him, something unreadable in her expression. Then, quietly, "Will you come with me? I don't want to be alone." The request hit him square in the chest. Of course. They drove to her apartment in silence, Hope in the back seat watching, them both with worried eyes. Animals knew when something was wrong, could sense the fear and adrenaline still pumping through Lily's veins. Inside her apartment, Lily immediately went to Hope's food bowl, filling it even though the dog had eaten hours ago. Busy work, something to do with her hands while her mind processed trauma. Ethan made tea, had to search through 3 cabinets to find the bags, but he managed and sat her down on the couch. "Talk to me," he said. "Real talk, not brave face for the cops talk." Lily wrapped her hands around the mug, stared into the steam. Derek Manning was captain of the football team, dated the prettiest girl in school, had a scholarship to Penny State. Everyone thought he'd make it out, do something big. What happened? His dad died senior year, sudden heart attack, and Derek had to stay home to help his mom, to work and pay bills. The scholarship didn't wait. Penn State moved on, and Derek got stuck here, working construction when there's work and drinking when there isn't. She took a shaky breath. And tonight, looking at him, I saw exactly how close I was to being him. How one wrong turn, one bad break, and you go from full of potential to breaking into convenience stores at midnight. You're nothing like him. Aren't I? We both lost parents. Both had dreams we had to give up. Both ended up stuck in a town with no opportunities. The only difference is you showed up when you did. If you'd come a month later, I might have been desperate enough to do something stupid, too. Ethan sat down, his own mug, and took her hands. You wouldn't have. You're not capable of hurting people to make yourself feel better. Everyone's capable of everything given the right circumstances. Lily met his eyes. That's what scares me. Not that Derek might have hurt me worse, but that I understand why he's angry, why he feels like we're the enemy. We're not the enemy. We're trying to help. Are we? Or are we just making ourselves feel better while we slowly price out the people who actually live here? She pulled her hands away, stood, started pacing. You're spending millions on renovations, raising wages, which is good, but also raising prices to compensate, installing fancy security systems and community boards. And meanwhile, Derek and people like him are watching their town turn into something they can't afford, can't recognize. So what do you want me to do? Not improve the stores? Keep paying poverty wages? No, I want— She stopped, frustrated. I don't know what I want. I want everyone to have better lives. But I want that to include Derek and the people who feel left behind. And I don't know how to do both. Ethan stood, moved to stand in front of her, stopping her pacing. Then we figure it out together. We talk to the community. We ask what they need. We make room for their voices in this, instead of just assuming we know best. You make it sound simple. It's not simple. It's messy and complicated, and we're going to screw up 100 more times. He touched her face gently, checking the bandage on her forehead. But we keep trying. We keep listening. We keep adjusting. That's all we can do. Lily looked up at him, and something shifted in the air between them, something that had been building for weeks, maybe from the moment they'd met in that coffee shop, and decided to try to fix something broken. Ethan, she said softly, what are we doing? He knew she wasn't talking about the stores. I don't know, he admitted. I keep telling myself this is just business, that you're my partner and nothing more. But that's a lie, isn't it? Yeah, it is. They stood there, inches apart, the weight of everything unsaid pressing down on them. Ethan wanted to kiss her, wanted to pull her close and promise everything would be okay, and that he'd keep her safe from every Derek Manning in the world. But he also knew that was a promise he couldn't keep, that life was messy and dangerous and full of things he couldn't control. So instead, he just held her, let her rest her head against his chest, let hope curl up at their feet, and stood there in that tiny apartment, holding this woman who'd somehow become essential to him in a matter of weeks, and felt something crack open in his chest that he'd thought was sealed forever. Stay, Lily whispered. Just for tonight. I don't want to be alone. I'll stay. They ended up on her couch, Lily curled against his side, hope stretched across both their laps. Not romantic, not a declaration, just two people who'd been scared and were finding comfort in not being alone. Ethan watched her fall asleep, her breathing evening out, the tension finally leaving her shoulders. And he thought about Derek Manning and desperation and the fine line between helping and hurting. They'd have to do better, have to actually engage with the community instead of just imposing change on it, have to make room for the anger and fear and let people have a voice in their own salvation. But tonight, he just held Lily and hoped that morning would bring clarity instead of more complications. His phone buzzed quietly. His father. Heard about the break-in. Is she okay? She's okay. Shaken, but okay. Good. I'll handle opening tomorrow. You take care of her. Ethan stared at the message, at this small gesture of caring from a man who'd spent 20 years showing nothing but indifference. Maybe people really could change. Maybe it was never too late. Or maybe he was just too exhausted to maintain his cynicism anymore. Thanks, Dad. That's what family does. Family. The word sat heavy in his chest. When had his father become family again? When had this town, these stores, this woman sleeping against him become the things that mattered most? He didn't have answers, just the quiet certainty that something fundamental had shifted, that he couldn't go back to who he was before even if he wanted to. And maybe that was okay. Maybe transformation was supposed to hurt. Maybe that's how you knew it was real. The community meeting was scheduled for Saturday at 2 p.m. in the high school gymnasium, the only space in Riverside large enough to hold everyone who might show up. Lily had spent 3 days organizing it, putting up flyers, making calls, posting on every local Facebook group she could find. Ethan had wanted to cancel it. After the robbery, after seeing Lily hurt and scared, every protective instinct in his body screamed to pull back, to keep a lower profile, to stop making waves that might come crashing down on the people he cared about. But Lily had insisted. "This is exactly when we need to do it," she'd said, her jaw set in that stubborn way he'd come to recognize. "We can't let fear win, can't let Derek's actions shut down the conversation. If anything, what happened proves we need to talk to people, really talk to them." So here they were, standing in a gymnasium that smelled like old sweat and teenage angst, watching as people filtered in. More than Ethan had expected. By the time 2 p.m. rolled around, there were maybe 200 people in the folding chairs they'd set up, old and young, black and white and Latino, people who'd lived in Riverside their whole lives, and people who'd moved here, hoping for something better. Derek Manning's mother was there, sitting in the back row, her face a mask of shame and defiance. Sarah was there with her daughter, who'd apparently loved her school play. Tommy sat up front, his broken arm in a bright blue cast covered in signatures, and Ethan's father stood off to the side, arms crossed, watching everything with unreadable eyes. Lily stepped up to the microphone they'd borrowed from the school. She looked nervous but determined, and Ethan felt a surge of pride so strong it nearly knocked him over. "Thank you all for coming," she started. "I know Saturday afternoon is precious time, and I appreciate you spending it here. My name is Lily Bennett. Most of you know me. I've lived in Riverside my whole life. Went to school here. Lost my dad. Here. Worked at Morton's Convenience for 3 years until I got fired for feeding a stray dog." A ripple of laughter. Some sympathetic, some bitter. "This is Ethan Hayes," she continued, gesturing to where he stood beside the makeshift stage. "Some of you know him as Dennis Morton's son. Some of you know him as the billionaire from Boston. But here's what I want you to know about him. He's the man who saw me get fired and decided that wasn't okay. Who took a dying dog to the vet and paid thousands of dollars to save her. Who came back to a town he swore he'd never return to because he thought maybe, just maybe, he could help make things better." Ethan felt heat creep up his neck. This wasn't how they'd planned to start. They were supposed to present the business plan first, lay out the facts and figures before getting personal. But Lily had never been good at following scripts. "We're here today because we messed up," she said bluntly. "We thought we could just swoop in, renovate some stores, pay better wages, and everything would be fine. We thought good intentions were enough. But Monday night, I learned they're not." She touched the bandage on her forehead, still visible even though the cut underneath was healing. "Monday night, I got robbed. 2 men came into the store while I was working alone, demanded money. And one of them, someone I went to high school with, told me exactly what he thought of the changes we're making. Called it gentrification. Said people like me and Ethan are ruining Riverside for real people." The room was silent now. You could have heard a pin drop. "And here's the thing," Lily continued, her voice stronger now. He wasn't entirely wrong. Murmurs rippled through the crowd. We've been making changes without really asking what the community wants. We've been assuming we know what's best. And that's not okay. So we're here today to listen, to actually hear from you about what you need, what you're afraid of, and how we can do better. She stepped back, and Ethan moved forward to take her place at the microphone. He'd given hundreds of speeches to investors, to conferences, to boards of directors. But none of them had felt as important as this one. I'm not going to stand up here and pretend I understand what it's like to live in a town with no opportunities, he started. I left Riverside 20 years ago and built a fortune. I have resources most of you will never have. And that gives me privilege, gives me power. But power without responsibility is just tyranny in a nicer suit. He could see his father shift uncomfortably in his peripheral vision. So here's what I'm proposing. We don't just renovate these stores and call it a day. We create a community development fund. 10% of the profits from Riverside Market go into a fund that you, the residents of this town, decide how to spend. Want to fix the park? Fund it. Want to bring back the community center? Fund it. Want to create job training programs? Fund it. You vote on it. You control it. Not me. More murmurs, but these sounded different. Interested, cautious, but curious. And we create a community advisory board. 15 residents, elected by you, who have actual input on business decisions. What products we stock, what prices we charge, who we hire. I'm not promising we'll do everything you want. I can't run a business that loses money, but I am promising you'll have a real voice, that will listen. An older man stood up in the third row. Why should we trust you? You're just another rich person who will get bored and leave in 6 months. Fair question. Brutal, but fair. You shouldn't trust me, Ethan said simply. Not yet. Trust has to be earned. But I'm asking you to give me the chance to earn it, to prove that business can be different, that success doesn't have to come at your expense. Pretty words, a woman called out. But what about the prices? Your stores already cost more than they used to. Some of us can't afford your better quality products. Then we need to talk about that, Lily interjected, moving back to the mic. What if we had a sliding scale? Show proof of financial need, and you get a discount card. Anonymous, no judgment, just help. That's charity, someone else said. We don't want charity. It's not charity, Ethan countered. It's investment. If you can't afford food, you can't work. If you can't work, the local economy suffers. If the local economy suffers, everyone loses. Keeping people fed and healthy isn't charity, it's good business. They went back and forth like that for over an hour. Questions and challenges and anger and hope all tangled together. People venting about years of being ignored, of watching their town die while politicians made promises they never kept. And Ethan and Lily listened, really listened, took notes. Acknowledged when they didn't have answers, promised to find them. Then Derek Manning's mother stood up. The room went silent. My son did a terrible thing Monday night, she said, her voice shaking. There's no excuse for it. He's in jail now, and he should be. But I want you all to know why he did it. Mrs. Manning, you don't have to. Lily started. Yes, I do. The woman's eyes were red-rimmed but determined. Derek's been angry for 10 years, ever since his daddy died and he had to give up Penn State. Ever since he watched all his friends leave while he stayed here and struggled. He's been drowning, and instead of asking for help, he got bitter, got mean, started drinking and blaming everyone else for his problems. She looked directly at Ethan. "What you're trying to do here, it won't help my Derek. He's too far gone, made his choices. But maybe it'll help the next kid, the next family that's one bad break away from falling apart. And I want you to know that some of us, not all, but some, we see what you're trying to do. We're grateful, even if we're scared it won't work." She sat down, and several people around her reached over to touch her shoulder, to offer silent support. Ethan felt his throat tighten. "Thank you, Mrs. Manning, for your honesty. And I want to say something to everyone here. We will fail, not might. Will. We're going to make mistakes. We're going to do things that hurt people even when we're trying to help. But the difference, the thing I'm asking you to believe in, is that we'll admit those failures. We'll adjust. We'll keep trying." "How do we know that?" Tommy called out from the front row. "How do we know you won't just get frustrated and sell everything to some corporation that'll actually make it worse?" Ethan looked at Lily. They'd discussed this, argued about it, finally agreed on something crazy. "We're putting it in writing," Ethan said. "The Community Advisory Board will have veto power over any sale. I can't sell these stores without your approval. Ever. It's going to be in the corporate bylaws. Legally binding." The room erupted. People talking over each other, some excited, some skeptical, some just stunned. "You'd give up that much control?" someone asked. "It's not about control," Ethan replied. "It's about partnership, about actually meaning it when we say this belongs to the community." An older woman near the back stood up slowly. Ethan recognized her Betty from Earl's Coffee House. She'd been serving coffee in Riverside for 40 years. "I've seen a lot of people come through this town promising change," she said, her voice carrying despite her age. "Politicians, businessmen, do-gooders from the city. And every single one of them left us worse off than we started. So excuse me if I'm not ready to throw a parade just yet." "You shouldn't be," Ethan agreed. "But," Betty continued, "I've also been watching you for 3 weeks. Watching you work behind the counter. Watching your father, who I've known since he was a boy, actually try to become a better man. Watching this young woman here risk her safety to do inventory late at night because she cares that much about getting it right." She paused, looked around the room. "I think maybe they're serious. Maybe they're naive and gonna fail spectacularly. But at least they're here. At least they're trying. And that's more than anyone else has done in 20 years. "So what are you saying?" someone asked. "I'm saying we give them a chance. Form that advisory board. Take their money for the community fund. Make them prove themselves. And if they fail when they fail, we hold them accountable. We don't just let them slink away and forget they made promises." Several people nodded. The energy in the room shifted from hostile to cautiously hopeful. A man in his 30s stood up. "I'll volunteer for the advisory board. I've got opinions, and I'm not afraid to voice them." "Me too," Sarah called out. "I'm in," someone else said. Within minutes, they had 20 people volunteering, way more than the 15 slots Ethan had proposed. They'd have to figure out elections, term limits, all the logistics. But it was happening. Real community engagement. Real partnership. As the meeting wound down, people came up to talk individually, to share their stories, to offer suggestions, to warn about problems Ethan and Lily hadn't even considered. Mrs. Yang approached, her face serious. "You need to talk to the farms, the local growers. They're struggling, and if you could commit to buying from them, it would save some of them. But you have to pay fair prices, not the poverty prices the big chains pay." "Done," Lily said immediately. "Can you connect us? I'll make calls tomorrow." Tommy hobbled over with his cast. "I want back in. I know I'm supposed to be on leave, but I'm going crazy at home. Let me help with the advisory board setup. I can do paperwork one-handed." "You're supposed to be resting," Ethan said. "I'll rest when I'm dead. Right now, I want to be useful." Ethan looked at Lily, who shrugged. "He's an adult. Let him make his own choices." "Fine, but no heavy lifting. And if your arm hurts, you stop. Deal." By the time the last person left, it was after 6 p.m. The gym was a mess of folding chairs and empty water bottles, and the lingering energy of something important that had just happened. Ethan's father approached slowly. "That was good. What you two did today?" "It was Lily's idea," Ethan said. "Of course it was. She's smarter than both of us combined." His father looked at the empty gymnasium. "Your mother would have loved this whole thing. The community coming together. People actually having a say." "Yeah," Ethan said softly. "She would have." "I'm sorry," his father said suddenly, "that I didn't do this years ago. That it took you coming back and her death and 20 years of stubbornness before I was willing to try something different. No. Do you forgive me?" Ethan thought about it. Really thought about it. "I don't know yet, but I'm working on it. That's the best I can offer right now." His father nodded. "That's more than I deserve." After he left, Lily collapsed into a folding chair, exhausted. Hope, who'd been waiting patiently in Lily's car with the windows cracked, bounded in as soon as someone opened the door, immediately checking on her person. "We did it," Lily said, scratching Hope behind the ears. "We actually did it." "We did something," Ethan corrected. "Now comes the hard part, actually following through." "You scared?" "Terrified. We just promised things I'm not sure we can deliver. Then, we'll figure it out as we go." Lily looked up at him, and something in her expression made his heart skip. "Together. Together," he echoed. And standing there in that empty gymnasium, surrounded by the evidence of a community finally willing to hope again, Ethan realized something. He wasn't running anymore. He was staying. And whatever came next, success, or failure, triumph, or disaster, he was going to face it here. In this dying town that was maybe, possibly, starting to come back to life, with this woman who'd somehow become his North Star, and this time he wasn't going to let fear drive him away. This time he was going to fight for something, for someone, for the possibility that broken things could be fixed if you cared enough to try. 6 weeks later, Ethan stood in the newly renovated Riverside Market, the main location, the one that had started everything, and barely recognized it. Gone were the flickering fluorescent lights, replaced by warm LED fixtures that made everything look welcoming, instead of institutional. The floors gleamed, no longer stained and cracked, but smooth and clean. Fresh produce from local farms filled displays near the entrance, actual vegetables that looked like they'd been picked that morning, not shipped from 3 states away and left to wilt. The community bulletin board took up an entire wall now, covered in flyers for job openings, community events, support groups, and hand-drawn pictures from elementary school kids thanking the nice store people for the free hot chocolate they'd given out during last week's early snow. But the biggest change wasn't visible. It was in the air, in the way employees smiled when they came to work, in the way customers lingered to chat instead of just grabbing what they needed and leaving, in the way the store had actually become a community space instead of just a transaction point. It was 11 a.m. on a Friday, and Ethan's flight back to Boston left in 4 hours. He'd been gone for 2 months, 2 months of 16-hour days and crisis management and learning that transforming a community was exponentially harder than building a tech company. 2 months of watching his father slowly become someone he could almost recognize as family. 2 months of falling completely, irreversibly in love with Lily Bennett and being too terrified to say it out loud. Now he had to leave. Had responsibilities. In Boston that he couldn't keep pushing back. A company that needed its CEO. Investors who were getting restless. A life he'd built over 15 years that couldn't just be abandoned because he'd found something that felt more real. "You're doing that thing again," Lily said, appearing beside him with Hope on a leash. The dog had become the unofficial store mascot, greeting customers and accepting pets with a dignity that suggested she'd always been someone's beloved companion instead of a starving stray. "What thing?" "That brooding CEO thing where you stare into the middle distance and contemplate the futility of existence." She bumped his shoulder. "It's very dramatic. Very unnecessary." "I'm not brooding. You've been staring at the produce section for 10 minutes without moving. That's textbook brooding." Ethan sighed. "I leave in 4 hours." "I know. And I don't want to." "I know that too." They stood in silence, watching the morning rush. Sarah at the register, laughing with Mrs. Yang about something. Tommy cast finally off, showing a new employee how to properly rotate stock. Marcus making complicated coffee drinks at the expanded coffee station that now actually served drinks people wanted to buy. And his father, Ethan's father, wearing a Riverside Market polo shirt, helping an elderly man load groceries into his car through the window, refusing the tip the man tried to give him. "He's different," Lily said softly. "Really different. Did you see him with that teenager yesterday? The one who tried to shoplift?" "No. What happened?" "Instead of calling the cops or banning him, your dad sat him down and asked why he was stealing. Turned out the kid's family is going through hell. Dad lost his job. Mom's sick. 2 younger siblings. So your dad gave him a job application, told him he could work off what he stole, and connected the family with community resources." Ethan felt his throat tighten. Yeah, it's who your mom would have wanted him to be." Lily looked up at him. "You did that. You gave him the chance to become that. We did that. You, me, this community. It wasn't just me. But you started it. You came back when you didn't have to. You risked everything on a town that had given you nothing but pain." "It gave me you," Ethan said quietly. Lily's breath caught. "Ethan, I need to tell you something." He turned to face her fully. "And I need to say it before I leave, because if I don't, I'll regret it for the rest of my life. Okay? I'm in love with you." The words came out rushed, graceless. Nothing like the smooth speeches he gave to investors. "I've been in love with you probably since that first day when you fed a dying dog and lost your job and still managed to be kind. And I know this is terrible timing. I know I'm leaving in 4 hours and you're staying here, and we're business partners, and this could complicate everything. But I had to tell you. I had to." Lily kissed him, just stepped forward, grabbed the front of his shirt, and kissed him right there in the middle of Riverside Market, with customers and employees, and his father all watching. And Ethan's brain short-circuited. Stopped thinking about logistics and complications and all the reasons this was a bad idea. Just felt her lips on his, her hand fisted in his shirt, her other hand still holding Hope's leash, like even in this moment she couldn't forget her responsibilities. When they finally broke apart, Lily was crying. "I love you too," she said. "I've been terrified to say it because you, this brilliant, successful billionaire who could have anyone. And I'm just—" "You're everything," Ethan interrupted. "You're the person who makes me want to be better, Who makes me believe that broken things can be fixed? Who makes me feel like maybe I'm not just a bank account with a pulse? You're not. You're so much more than that. She wiped her eyes. But Ethan, I can't leave Riverside. Not now. Not when we're just getting started. The advisory board, the community fund, Hope, I know, and I'm not asking you to. So, what are we doing? Long distance? You in Boston, me here, seeing each other on weekends if we're lucky? For now. Ethan took her hands. But I'm already working on a plan. I can run Morton Technologies remotely. Come back once a month for board meetings and critical decisions. The rest of the time, I can work from here. Marissa's been handling Boston beautifully anyway. She doesn't need me hovering. You'd do that? Give up Boston for Riverside? I'm not giving up Boston. I'm choosing to live in both places. But if I had to choose if it came down to the company or you, I'd choose you. Every single time. Lily laughed through her tears. That's the worst business decision I've ever heard. Good thing I'm making it for personal reasons, not business ones. They kissed again, softer this time. Less desperate, more certain. And Ethan felt something settle in his chest that had been restless for 20 years. He was home. Finally. Actually home. Not because of a place, but because of a person. Because of the community they'd built together. Because of the father he was learning to forgive, and the dog that had started everything, and the employees who'd taken a chance on something different. Okay, Sarah called out from the register. That's adorable and all, but some of us are trying to work here. Take it. Outside, laughter rippled through the store. Ethan's father was grinning, actually grinning, and Tommy was already pulling out his phone to presumably text everyone he knew. Come on, Lily said, tugging Ethan toward the door. Let's give them something to really gossip about. They walked, outside, into the cold November air. Snow was starting to fall light, delicate flakes that promised winter was truly here. Hope bounded ahead, trying to catch snowflakes on her tongue, and Lily laughed at the dog's antics. I can't believe this. Is real, Lily said. 2 months ago, I was a fired convenience store clerk eating ramen and wondering if life would ever get better. And now, I'm a business owner with a dog and a... She paused. What are you? My boyfriend? That sounds so high school. I'm yours, Ethan said simply. However you want to define it. I like that. She leaned into him. You're mine. And I'm yours. And we're building something that actually matters. They stood there, watching Hope play in the snow, watching Riverside slowly come back to life around them. The stores were thriving, all 3 locations now renovated and running smoothly. The Community Advisory Board was meeting weekly, making real decisions about inventory and pricing and community initiatives. The Development Fund had already funded repairs to the park and was close to approving a proposal for a youth job training program. It wasn't perfect. There were still problems, poverty that wouldn't be solved by 3 convenience stores, addiction that required more resources than they had, families that had been broken by decades of economic decline and wouldn't heal overnight. But it was better, measurably, tangibly better. And that had to count for something. What are you thinking? Lily asked. That my mother would have loved this. All of it. The stores, the community engagement, you, especially you. I wish I could have met her. She would have adopted you immediately, made you come over for Sunday dinners and probably tried to teach you her terrible cooking. Ethan smiled at the memory. She couldn't cook to save her life. Everything was either burnt or undercooked. But she tried so hard, And we ate it anyway because the meal wasn't really about the food. It was about being together. Your dad told me about her, Lily said. Last week, we were doing inventory, and he just started talking about how they met, how she used to sing while she worked, how she'd leave notes in his lunch with terrible jokes. He talked about her? To you? He's in therapy, Ethan. Real therapy. Twice a week. And he's actually doing the work. Facing the guilt. Learning how to grieve instead of just bury it under anger. Ethan felt his eyes burn. I didn't know. He didn't want to tell you until he was sure he could stick with it. Didn't want to disappoint you again. Lily squeezed his hand. But he's changing. Really changing. And I think part of that is because you showed him it was possible. That people can become better versions of themselves. They walked back inside as the snow started falling harder. The store was warm and bright, full of people and life, and the possibility of something good continuing to grow. Ethan's father approached, his expression serious. Can I talk to you? Before you leave? Of course. They stepped into the storage room, the same one where Ethan's father had eaten lunch alone for years, too proud to sit with his employees. I want to thank you, his father said, for coming back, for not giving up on me, for showing me that it's not too late to be the person I should have been all along. Dad, let me finish. His father's voice was rough. Your mother died believing I'd failed her, that I'd chosen money over love, success over family. And she wasn't wrong. But you gave me a chance to prove that her life mattered, that the things she believed in, kindness, community, actually caring about people, those things can exist alongside success, that I don't have to choose between being a good man and being a successful one. You did that yourself. I just created the circumstances. No, you did more than that. You forgave me, or at least you're trying to. And that's given me permission to forgive myself, to stop punishing everyone around me for the mistakes I made. His father held out his hand. I'm proud of you, son. I should have said it 20 years ago. Should have said it every day. But I'm saying it now. I'm proud of the man you've become. Your mother would be proud too. Ethan took his father's hand, and then, surprising both of them, pulled him into a hug. It was awkward and brief, and neither of them really knew what to do with their emotions. But it happened, and that was what mattered. When they pulled apart, both had wet eyes. Don't mess this up with Lily, his father said gruffly. She's the best thing that's ever happened to you. I know. Then act like it. Don't let work or fear or stubbornness get in the way. I made that mistake with your mother. Don't make it. Too. I won't. His father nodded and left, and Ethan stood in that storage room feeling like something fundamental had shifted, like a weight he'd been carrying for 2 decades had finally been lifted. The next 4 hours passed too quickly, saying goodbye to employees who'd become friends, checking in with the advisory board members who'd gathered to see him off, promising Tommy he'd be back in 2 weeks for the grand reopening celebration they were planning. And finally, standing in the parking lot with Lily and Hope, his rental car packed and ready to go. 2 weeks, he promised. Then I'm back for a week, and then we figure out a more permanent schedule. 2 weeks, Lily agreed. I'll be here. I love you. I love you too. Now go before I cry and make this even harder. Ethan kissed her one more time, long and deep and full of promises about the future they were going to build together. Then he got in the car and drove away, watching Riverside disappear in his rearview mirror. But this time, he wasn't running. This time, he was leaving, with the certainty that he'd be back. Because home wasn't a place anymore. It was a person, a community, a purpose, and he'd finally found all three. 2 years later, the grand reopening of Earl's Coffee House, newly renovated and expanded thanks to the Community Development Fund, was packed. Every seat taken, people spilling out onto the sidewalk. Sitin Twadi. Whole town seemingly gathered to celebrate. Ethan stood at the edge of the crowd, watching Lily give a speech about community partnerships and sustainable development. She wore a simple dress and her hair pulled back, and she was 7 months pregnant with their daughter. Their daughter. The words still made him dizzy with happiness. Hope sat at his feet, gray creeping into her muzzle now, but healthy and content. She'd become something of a town celebrity, the dog that started a revolution, people joked, the stray that saved a town. His father approached, moving slower these days, but with a lightness that hadn't been there 2 years ago. He'd retired officially 6 months ago, though he still volunteered at the stores regularly. Couldn't quite give it up entirely. "Your mother would have loved this," his father said, echoing words Ethan had thought countless times. Yeah, she would have. She'd have loved Lily, too. Loved that you found someone who makes you actually happy instead of just successful. I'm both now, happy and successful. Turns out you can have both if you're willing to redefine what success means. His father smiled. Took me 60 years to learn that lesson. You figured it out in 2 months. Proof you're smarter than me. Or just lucky. That too. They stood in comfortable silence, watching Lily finish her speech to enthusiastic applause. She caught Ethan's eye across the crowd and smiled that brilliant, unguarded smile that still made his heart skip. Morton Technologies was thriving under Marissa's day-to-day management, with Ethan as a mostly remote CEO who came to Boston once a month. The Riverside Market stores had expanded to 5 locations across 3 counties, all operating under the same community-focused model. The advisory board had become a template that other towns were trying to replicate, and Derek Manning, who'd served 8 months for the robbery and come out different, softer somehow, now worked at the Highway 9 location, managing inventory and volunteering with at-risk youth. It wasn't perfect. There were still problems, still families struggling, still work to be done. But it was better, and it kept getting better every day. Lily made her way through the crowd to him, and he wrapped his arms around her carefully, mindful of her belly and their daughter kicking inside. "Good speech," he said. "I'm getting better at them. You're a terrible influence." "The worst." She laughed and kissed him, and someone in the crowd whistled. After 2 years, the town had gotten used to seeing them together, but they still loved to make a fuss about it. "Come on," Lily said, taking his hand. "Betty's about to cut the ribbon, and she specifically requested that Hope do the honors." Chapter 3. Dogs cutting the ribbon? She pulls it with her teeth. It's adorable. We practiced. Because of course they had. Because this was their life now, planning ribbon-cutting ceremonies for dogs and community meetings and expansion projects that actually helped people instead of just extracting profit. As they walked toward Earl's Coffee House, Hope trotting beside them and his father following behind, Ethan thought about that Tuesday morning 2 years ago, when he'd stood across the street from his father's convenience store and watched a young woman get fired for feeding a stray dog. He'd thought he was coming back to Riverside to close a chapter. Instead, he'd opened the most important one of his life, found love, found purpose, found home, and proved, finally, definitively proved that kindness wasn't weakness, that caring about people wasn't naive, that success measured in human dignity was worth infinitely more than success measured in dollars. His mother had known that, had tried to teach him that, had died believing it even when the world told her she was wrong. And now, standing in the town that had almost killed her, watching the community she'd loved come back to life, Ethan finally understood what she'd been trying to tell him all along. Money couldn't buy happiness, but it could build communities, could create opportunities, could give people the chance to become who they were always meant to be, and that was worth everything. "Ready?" Lily asked, squeezing his hand. Ethan looked at her, at his father, at the crowd of people who'd become his family, at the dog who'd started it all. "Yeah," he said, "I'm ready." And as Hope grabbed the ribbon in her teeth and pulled, officially, opening Earl's coffee house to roaring applause and laughter, and the kind of joy that only comes from community, Ethan felt something he'd been searching for his entire life. Peace. Not the absence of problems, but the presence of purpose. Not the end of struggle, but the beginning of hope. Not perfection, but something better, something real. And as Lily leaned into him and their daughter kicked against his hand, and his father laughed at something Betty said, and Hope wagged her tail so hard her whole body shook with joy, Ethan thought, this is what it means to be alive. Not just surviving, but actually, truly living. And he'd never been more grateful for a stray dog, and a fired convenience store clerk, and a dying town that refused to stay dead. Because they'd saved him just as much as he'd saved them. Maybe more. Probably more. And that was the best kind of ending there was. The kind that was really just a beginning.